Fireside chat.
Oh, and I'm
Hello?
not in. Hey, all right. So I think we're good. We're just waiting for Jimmy. I had to email him, so hopefully I just texted him. Let me try
Cool.
to figure. Sorry, I'm going up my laptop, so I'm kind of. It's the first swing at this, so we'll see how it goes. I miss the AfterCon stuff, so for me, this was like an opportunity to bring that back. Be able to talk to creators, talk to different people about what's going on, what they're working on, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And the first, for the first group, I really wanted Justin and Jimmy because I've known Jimmy a long time. They've collaborated on a lot of stuff. But I wanted Steven because being a Full Sail grad myself this year, Steven is like the holy grail of Full Sailors. So he's the Hall of Fame holy grail guy. But we can start while we're waiting for Jimmy. And you guys have got a lot in common. You're both screenwriters. Steven's a director as well. Justin's written for games, movies, all that stuff. So if you guys want to start with Justin, if you want to just give us a little detail about yourself, some background, and then we'll go to Steven. Hopefully Jimmy's here by then.
Sure. I like most people in this part of the world, grew up wanting to do things that I saw other people doing, and that was comics, film, music, all kinds of stuff. So I was lucky enough to find my way into comics after a lot of struggles and a lot of rejection letters. I used to collect these shoeboxes full of rejection letters from magazines back when people cared about writing for magazines. And eventually I got to be an intern at Marvel Knights through the powers of the internet and me being kind of crazy. And Joe and Jimmy invited me to go to the Blade party, the Blade premiere when the first Wesley Snipes Blade movie came out in Chicago. And I was supposed to work. That was a Friday. And I just jumped in my truck. I drove to Chicago. I found a hotel room pretty far away from the convention center. I opened up a phone book in the hotel room. I called every hotel I could until I got a hold I think I got a hold of Joe Quesada. And he said, why don't you come and hang out with us tonight? And then that's how things got started, from being a guy who wanted to write comics to actually writing comics.
It's funny that you say that because, and I may be wrong, this is from the internet, but according to the internet, Steven graduated Full Sail, moved to California with $100 in his pocket to start the dream. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, basically, because I was an East Coast kid too, so growing up wanting to do things that I was watching all the time was the same for me. I mean, I watched movies constantly. I grew up on them. I was constantly in my friends' basements, renting some kind of weird VHS that looked cool. That's how we went about doing it. We didn't really watch anything other than going to some mom and pop shop and looking at the cases and deciding what looked the coolest to watch. And usually that was some kind of weird horror film. So, that's how I started. Then I was really into the skate scene. So I did a lot of skate videos and a lot of music videos. And then felt like I wanted to go to film school, but I didn't want to do the prestigious like NYU or some crazy thing that just wasn't my style. And plus I felt like the theory part of film I already got from watching hours and hours and hours of movies. I felt like I understand the theory. My biggest concern was, did I understand the technical aspects of filming and the language and what goes into that and how people talk when they're on set and how all that gear worked? That was my biggest concern. So that's why I chose Full Sail, because when I toured the school, and also it's in Florida where I grew up. But when I toured the school, the equipment was mind-boggling to me, and what they had was amazing. So that's really why I wanted to go there. So when I went there, I really just focused on editing, camera operating, and really just honed in on those things. I know Full Sail allows you to direct your thesis or direct these things. I chose not to do any of that. I chose to stick with the grips and the electrics and the camera operators and really learn what those guys were doing, because I felt like if I understood what those guys were talking about on set, then I would have a better understanding of how to direct the movie. So while I was in school, I had been playing around with a script. It was like a zombie thing, and I just kind of went to the school and said, "Hey, I want to make this. Can I use your equipment? Can I use the students?" And they said, "Sure, but you only have like a 9-day window," because I was around the 4th of July and when they were letting students do their thing or go home or whatever for the 4th of July. So I gathered as many students as I could, and we had this script. We casted it. We took those 9 days. We shot a movie all in Orlando and Ocala, Florida. And I didn't really know what to do with it. But I had like 150, it was like 150 bucks that I had left over from all the money. I took money from my student loans to make the movie. So that was supposed to go into housing. So I got kicked out of the house that I was in. I couldn't pay the rent. And then I had that money left. And the only thing I thought to do was to go to LA. So I drove to LA with that money. I'm not saying I got there totally legit, because there was times I ran out of gas money and had to find ways to get gas money. But anyway, so like I got there, yeah, I slept in my car for about a year and a half, editing the movie on my laptop, finding guys off of Craigslist, you know, guys like Jamie, who scored Gears of War, was doing the score on the weekends for me for free, just because I found him on Craigslist. He was bored, oddly enough. Just guys like that, you know, like just random things that happened. And then I was able to, you know, crazy enough, sell it to Dimension and the Weinstein Company. And so that feature that I made for around $4,500 turned out to be a movie that I sold to Dimension Films. And so that's how I got started. And then from there, it just sort of, you know, jump started, and I was sort of in the ballpark, you know.
That's great.
Nice. So were you a comic fan growing up, or no?
Yeah. I mean, I love comics. I was that kid that was always trying to figure out, how do I read more? Because there wasn't a lot of comic book shops where I was. I grew up in a really small town, and there wasn't really a lot of that going on. So I was going to Orlando, I was going to Jacksonville, or I was going to Tampa to try to find some of those cool shops. And especially in Florida, it felt like it was a gap of that kind of thing. And so once I got into the skate scene, I really was able to get more into New York, and we were traveling a lot. So I was able to sort of hit some streets and find some places that I really enjoyed that had a lot more stuff that I liked. But yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a guy that does Comic-Con every year. I love it. I think it's a lot of fun. So, you know, I respect all of those guys. I mean, I think that's the hardest industry in the world. And so, you know, you guys rocking it. And Jimmy, funny enough, I know Jimmy because I'm really good friends with Jonathan Sheck, and Jonathan Sheck played Jonah Hex, and they were trying to figure out, how do we keep Jonah Hex alive, and you know, it's like this whole thing. But yeah, so yeah.
So Justin can actually talk to you about that, because Justin was on set, and did you guys see the scripts and stuff, Justin, or maybe you can speak more?
We did see the script. I don't remember which color it was, but it was pretty close to the finished one. Yeah, we saw the script. We were on set. That was the year I got H1N1 back in April of 2009. And yeah, I mean, it was cool. The stuff we saw on set primarily didn't make it into the film, which is interesting to me, because it's just another example of when you're in a thing, it's much different from when you're outside of a thing. So we saw whole scenes. In fact, there's an actress who played Hex's wife in that. I liked her a lot. She's very much a character actor, and she had sort of she was like unapproachable prior to the scene, and I couldn't. I'm just stupid. I'm like, why can't I talk to her? And she's like preparing, and I'm like, God, she's such a bee. I don't understand why she's so cranky. And then after, she was like the sweetest person in the world, and she never got in the movie. And I don't know what happened or why she was replaced by someone else. Or, but there's one of my favorite things from being on set was a scene that was cut where Malkovich playing Turnbull, Hex had a kid, and Malkovich murdered the wife and the kid. And they had he had a cane, and they had the mattress set up in the woods, and the mattress was off camera because, you know, you can't show bashing a newborn in the head with a cane in most films. So he goes through the whole scene, and he stops, and in pure John Malkovich, he's just like, it was 4th down, and I decided to punt, and then he pretends to kick the baby, and I was just like, all right, that's nuts. That's never going to make it in the movie, but it was hysterical. But it was fun being on set. It was interesting to see the script because I think that Jimmy had, and I'm forgetting his last name, and that's terrible. The director, I think he was put behind the 8 ball because it was a Neville Dean and Taylor script, and like you really can't. Like they have their own thing. Like they had to do their thing because you can't just pull someone in and say, here, take their script and do do your version of their thing. And I think he did the best that he could with all the handicapping and all the other stuff that was involved in that. But I mean, that's how that system works. I mean, that's how the movie business goes. If you don't have absolute control and you're sort of being pulled in 8 different directions, you usually end up with a product that feels like it's pulled in 8 different directions.
Yeah, you could totally tell on screen with that kind of stuff too. It's crazy how much set life leaks into the movie, even the vibe of the movie. And I feel like that as a director, where I try to keep my sets as light and as fun, and a lot of the times I like my sets to have a pulse to them, because I feel like if my set has a pulse, the movie has a pulse, and all of that sort of bleeds into the movie. And it's just like anything else. Like if there's issues on set, or if there's problems, or people are getting pulled, or you really feel that. And I feel like that's why a lot of movies, when you watch them, you sort of get that sort of vibe of like, what's happening every 20 minutes here? It feels like we're jumping around. So definitely you can feel that vibe.
You got to set up that relationship. I do that with artists all the time. I give them the comic. I'm like, look, you may like it, you may not like it. And if they come back to you and they're super enthusiastic, that they're going to want to put time into doing the book. And otherwise, it's not just a gig or a job where they have to go and get paid or they need the money for it. So you definitely have to have that kind of relationship. So I totally agree with what you're saying. Setting up that kind of emotional vibe is great.
Yeah.
So Stephen, have you started filming anything recently or no? Because I know here in Albuquerque, I have a friend, it's an AD, and they tried to shoot, and they had I think they had 4 instances where somebody tested positive. They had to shut down, for 2 weeks, come back, try and get through this. And I know they just started shooting Stranger Things a week or 2 ago, but then they've already stopped. They're going to come back in April and try again.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I haven't even tried, to be honest.
Yeah.
I had a few things that I could have gone. I said no to, and it's simply because I have a family and I felt like leaving them right now, like a thing, and I didn't want them to be here and something happen or it gets shut down again, and I'm even more time than I needed to be. I really, at this point, I've just sort of kind of hunkered down, and I finished a movie last year. It came out, it did really well for Amazon. So I'm happy with that. And then I also have a trailer business. Me and my wife launched a boutique trailer house for movie trailers, which I edit. And so that surprisingly has been insanely busy all year this year. And I prefer to just sort of sit and edit and kind of keep my brain going that way and let directing sort of run its, in its time get there. But I just felt like for me, not speaking for anybody, but for me, I got 2 kids that are in school, and my wife is not a teacher. So her having to sit here all the time in class and teach them is hard enough. And then she needs to get home, afterwards she's got to put them to bed and stuff. So I don't know. I just felt like for me, I just wanted to be home and make sure everybody was cool here. And then hopefully in 2021, things lighten up and, I don't know. And it'll start getting a little better for me to jump out. But, as of right now, I'm just happy, doing this. I think I did from 2012 to 2019, I did 10 films. So to take a break anyway is nice.
Nice. So you do any screenwriting in your downtime or anything, or no?
No, because to be honest, I've only written 1 feature, and that was my first feature. After that, I was like, fuck this. I'm gonna leave that to the people that do it better than me. And that was my whole philosophy. Is I'm great at set pieces. I'm great at getting characters from A to B and the action of it. But when it comes to dialogue and character development and what these people need to do or say on screen, oh my God, that is just not my writing forte. And I love letting guys or women who know how to do that much better than me do it. And then I can come in. And also, it kind of gives me a little bit more freedom to come in and fuck with the script because I don't feel so bad that, it's not my baby. And so, but yes, I kind of just, have stuck to really a lot of editing.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like on the comic side, it's crazy because like, and hopefully Jimmy will join us here at some point. I texted him, but we'll see. But like, you know, for me personally, like, I think it's like maybe going on 20 years ago. I read Marvel Knights and I read the Daredevil story, Kevin Smith and stuff, and I loved it. And I went to Wizard World Philly, and Joe and Jimmy were both there. Joe was at the Marvel booth. Jimmy was out on the floor with Phil Noto, and you know, of the two, and I mean, they've both been super nice, but of the two, you know, Jimmy was the more welcoming and more, hey, supportive, you know, hey, you know, and I told him, you know, I'd be interested in this, you know, I'd really like to write some stuff. And, you know, the dude is like, hey, we're going to be out at the bar, you know, after the show, come down. I came down, you know, talked to him, we hung out, gives me his email, and he's like, send me, you know, what you're working on, and I'll take a look at it. So I sent him. And at that time, stupid me, like I was writing a comic script like a book. Like I had no idea how to write a script. So I write it as a book, I send it to him, and probably being nice, but he's like, this isn't bad. He's like, but you need to do it in script format. So he sends me one of the Jonah Hex scripts that he and Justin had worked on, told me to look at that, you know, try to follow that, come back. So I did that, and then I hit the roadblock of finding an artist. And, you know, when you're first coming in, and everybody will tell you, you know, hey, you got to pay the artist to get good work and to be able to, you know, submit something that people are going to want to read and want to look at. And it's just like, then it becomes that whole mess of, you know, well, what is the going rate for an artist that hasn't been published? Because they may think, you know, hey, I'm worth $200 a page. And you're thinking, well, shit, this is my first book. You know, I can afford X amount per page, and it just becomes, you know, like that mess. And like I had these scripts that just had never moved because I would get into that of, well, I can't afford to pay somebody this amount of money, you know, right now. And so, you know, I stayed in contact with Jimmy, and he's been super nice, and he would tell me, you know, about people that were maybe available or told me places to check. So eventually, you know, I got to where I found some artists that I could pay them, you know, X amount, but I could also offer them part of the IP. Be like, you know what, this may not never go anywhere, but I'm willing to give you 50% of the IP if it ever does. And that actually, you know, kind of panned out. And of course, now in the worst year ever, I have the most successful year of comics. So there you go.
Yeah. I think it works out that way. It's always interesting.
It's tough going uphill on that and trying to find artists who work with you, and everyone's skeptical. And then, I mean, I'm not going to say there's not flakes in every single industry. So you're going to run into people who are gung ho on Monday, and Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, you know, you never hear from them again. And and there are people who gauge, I'm going to work as hard as I get paid instead of, you know, and to be fair, there's also the element of people who try and take advantage of other people on both sides of the ball. I remember Jimmy and I were working on something, and it was a competitive piece where a bunch of other people were involved. And we said, well, what are you paying for the pitch? And the response was, well, no one else asked that question, so obviously we can't pay you and not everyone else. So like by measure of, you know, 5 to 1, you don't get paid, you know. And I can't tell you how much stuff I've done for free over the years on the business, because you can't, I mean, there's that flip side. Like you're asking someone to say, why don't you partner with me on this? We'll see how it works out. And then there's the business saying, I want you to write a television show that's going to last 10 years. I want a Bible for that, and I want it next week. And I mean, that's one of the things that weeds people out of most industries, is how much of a grind it is with not a lot of payback. So the people who, you know, they get called crazy for staying in there for so long. But, you know, there's such an outlier. The people who have massive success across media platforms, like I always use Walking Dead as an example, you know, that's an outlier. That's not how everything, you know, for every Walking Dead, there's a million dead. You know, that's how it goes across any entertainment industry, as you guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's 100% the same for me as well. I mean, I don't know. I've probably heard, you know, a million no's and one yes. You know, that's just how it always happens. In the same way, I mean, even when I'm going into pitch on films. I mean, they're asking for lookbooks, they're asking for sizzle reels, they're asking for, you know, a gargantuan of things that cost money for you to do that you get nothing in return.
And time.
Especially because they say no, and time. Yeah, I mean, you're spending lots of effort to put your vision on paper or in an edit or whatever it is, in poster form, in art form. And even in my world, it's a lot of art, you know, and trying to show these execs, these suits who have no idea what they really want to see. You're trying to show them something visually so they can get an idea of what you want to put on screen. And so you do that and you do that and you do that and you hear no, no, no. I mean, it gets exhausting. So, I mean, you're totally right. I mean, it really does weed out people pretty quickly. And you start to realize a lot of your friends who were in film school with you are no longer doing anything film related. And it's just because that's the case. It's just that they don't want to deal with the ups and downs, because even after being in, you know, making movies now for 15 years almost, the ups and downs are constant. It's never been just an easy road for long periods of time. It's, you know, it's good, then it's like, oh shit, and then it's great, and then it's oh shit, and then so I mean, I don't know, but I think I'm sort of one of those people that enjoys that sort of rush, or that sort of like, all right, how am I going to figure this out this year, you know? And so I guess that's one of the reasons why I like it.
Yeah, and to be fair, people who are cynical about the business, I have seen, I'm blanking on what this was. I've seen a pitch where they do the actor breakdown, and I forget what that's called. That has been absolutely mind-blowing, like seeing some of the best ones I've ever seen that go nowhere.
Right.
Like they're so good. And they're like, I can see it. It's a TV show, it's a film, and it's all there. And I've seen bad ones. Made, and I've seen really good ones just get shelved for no apparent reason whatsoever. I don't understand who makes those decisions and who says. I mean, the one pitch that I saw was just outstanding, and they put so much care into it, and the verbiage, you could tell the writing in the pitch was the writing you were going to get in the show, right? And nothing ever happened. And so many people are interested in it, and then all of a sudden, everyone runs away from it. And it's just weird. I don't get it.
Well, it's like you said, you get everyone wanting it now, and then the next day you don't hear from them, and you don't hear from them ever again. It's like you'll hear from them like a week straight on how much they need, how much they want, how much they need you to get this together, and you throw it all together and you get it all done in that week, and you're like, okay, I did it. And you're out of breath, and then you're just sitting there.
And you're like, I'm on my
it's just cricket
peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and what's happening?
Yep, it is. And it's like, even in this world, you don't want to be the annoying guy that's constantly like, well, are we doing what's happening? Like, what are you doing? You just kind of like got to bite the bullet and keep moving on other things. And people always ask me, and you asked me earlier, is like, are you doing anything? Well, I always have like 20 things that I'm juggling or that I've thrown up against the wall that I've said yes to because percent of them will just go away. And there'll be 5% that'll maybe happen, and then down to 1 that'll actually happen. So I'm constantly someone, because of all of these things like up and down, I'm constantly someone that keeps things, constantly in motion to try to have as much as I can to see which one just goes.
Absolutely. Definitely. I that's 100%.
So do you think this is the end of the movie theater?
Oh man, I don't know. I think, I don't think it's the end, but I think it's a revamp. I think it's all going to change dramatically. I mean, I think at some point you're going to have someone like Amazon or Apple buy the theater, buy their own theaters, and then have their own content in those theaters. And then you're going to have some kind of special price where you can rent the theater and you can binge watch that night with your girlfriend for a date night. I think it's going to get really wonky and weird first, but I think it'll ultimately be really cool, because I think you're going to start to weed out the people that are annoying in movies because they don't want to spend the price to go there, because they can watch it at home. And us guys that love the cinephiles, that we want to sit there in peace and watch movies, we're going to be able to do it a little bit more, refreshingly. I think it's going to be a tough flex period where people aren't going to know if it's going to work or not. But I definitely think it's going to be very different. I don't know if it ever goes back to being exactly the same, but who knows? I mean, I'm not a futurist, but I feel like it definitely feels like it's trending different.
Yeah, I can't imagine we're going to go back to that old newsreels in the beginning of the movie, like when everyone was going, everyone's piling into the theaters, everyone.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that it's going to be more than a cottage industry for a while until they find some kind of technological change that makes everyone enthusiastic about going to do it. I mean, pandemic aside,
Sure.
the cost of the size of the real estate you need to put a theater in itself must be so hard to cover your to break even or
and let's be real, these kids are growing up on screens like this
Right.
big, and that's what they're watching movies on. That's what our reasoning for going to movies was the communal experience, like
Right.
feeling everyone being there and experiencing it all together. Kids, I mean, specifically, I mean, I know my kids growing up, they're watching it like this with themselves, having a blast watching it by themselves. You know what I mean?
Parallel
So,
play too. Like they're like two
yeah.
kids next to each other watching the same thing from totally. But I'm like, why can't you watch it together? And I realized it's not.
It's not the same. Yeah, they want to watch it on their own device. You know what I mean? So it's a very interesting phenomenon, and you see that with attention spans. You see that with films that are having a hard time being any longer than 2 hours. You know what I mean? It's just like it's hard to put those in theaters because the attention span for people are so short. But yeah, it's definitely going to be different.
It's interesting, that whole war on like bite-sized entertainment. What was it, Quibi or whatever, that went under?
Quibi. I mean, and that was out, done.
Yeah,
Right.
like not even a year, right?
Yeah, but that's also, I think that's a testament to people just saying this is silly. Like it's just
Right.
like there's certain things. It's like if you don't understand the technology and how to use it, I don't think Quibi did. Bring the screen in and you get a totally different view of what you're watching. But I feel like the audience just wasn't prepared for that or up for it. I think there's a little bit of tradition still in everybody that wants to be able to just sit and watch a movie and not worry about if I turn my screen, I'm going to get another angle and this or that. I think it becomes a little too much. So I think they just jumped the gun on that for sure.
I think they also mishandled it because I think the whole appeal of the small screen thing is that it feels like people are doing it. Like you were talking about doing skate videos. The skate video isn't like, let's get Keanu Reeves to skate in a pool for half an hour. It was the idea of like genuine people who were just like us and not celebrities. And they really pushed this sort of like, we're going to use star power to do it. Whereas all the small screen media, very little of that is star power driven. And, even if I don't like most of it or I don't agree with it talent wise or content wise, there's something there that's happening, and it's been happening for a while.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're not pushing it towards an audience they should have been pushing it for, which is that YouTube audience, and pushing it towards the YouTubers and all those people that are doing that. You should have seen their faces all over this Quibi thing. You're absolutely right. It should have been a star power thing, and this isn't Apple. It's not like they're starting a whole new network that we're watching on our TV. We're watching it on our phone specifically, and for all of those kids watching it on their phones, they want to pick it up and see someone they see every day
themselves too. They see themselves in the opportunity for sure.
Yep.
I mean, that's all of that stuff is all about seeing yourself in it or being around people that inspire you enough. It's more of a communal thing, like you were saying about going to theaters. Their community is much different. The format of it and the way that they get into it, it's just.
Oh, for sure. My son, who's 6, he has a Switch. But he watches a dude play the Switch for like 3 hours a day. I'm like, son, you have this game. You can play this game. But he's watching the dude play it. And he's like, yeah, but once he shows me how to do it, then I can go play it. I'm like, okay, whatever.
I used to watch back when they had Halo tournaments. I used to watch it, and I was like, this is great. These guys are so amazing. Like I could see them. I can learn something from that. But there's a give and take and the idea that I think Colin Cowherd said that esports is what he made some comment about esports not being real, which is why he's not on ESPN anymore. People fail to recognize changes, and they're like so staunchly involved in it has to be this way, and we keep seeing it failing over and over again. And rather than hating it, like the idea is to figure out where you can contribute to it if possible, because you age yourself out of things over time. Which is one of the things losing with film is that you could be an octogenarian and make a film that would be gripping and engaging, and maybe it's a Thanksgiving movie or whatever, and everyone loves it. But I don't don't feel like we're trending towards that anymore. We're trending towards something completely different.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're trending towards out of the box. You're trying to figure out how do you make things feel. I mean, like that's why I feel like John Wick was such a big success, because it was a movie that came along and did something different with gunplay that nobody had ever seen before. And I think that's what these things that do, like Crank and these kind of movies that do so well, or Hardcore Henry, that are a lot of fun to me, is because they're embracing the technology, they're embracing the audience that wants to watch these, and pushing it instead of pushing it been watching movies forever and we get it. They're really trying to push to a new audience, which I think is pretty cool. My wife said the same thing. My wife, she was like, your son watches this. I mean, you were looking at Power Magazine when you were a kid trying to figure out how to play the games. That's basically what he's doing by watching these guys play. Is like, you were using the Nintendo cheat magazine, but now he's doing it this way. So it's like you said, you just really got to embrace the new technology and what's happening, and really try to find a way to incorporate that in what you're doing.
And the thing about John Wick to me, and I've had conversations with people in Hollywood or whatever moniker you want to put on that. And my thing is, like, I'll use that as an example of it's dead simple. It's such a simple premise. It's a up to the heart emotional thing. It doesn't require a lot of mental gymnastics to say, this is what I'm doing. This is what the movie's about. But the execution of it and the way that Keanu is in that role, I mean, so much of that's lost. They try and overcomplicate everything. I mean, like, leave the complicated stuff to Nolan. Like, let people who are good at doing that do that. But otherwise, understand why it's because they give me notes on stuff doing a script, and I was like, no, you're missing the point. It doesn't have to be this complicated. There doesn't have to be a twist. There's not an M. Night Shyamalan and everything. Like, let him do his thing.
And that was like the total thing for like from 2002 to 2010. It felt like was like everyone was like, but where's the twist at the end? How are we going to twist it? And I'm like, no, this is just an action movie. We're just blowing shit up. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't rocket science. Yeah, this isn't rocket science. I'm like, and I think that's something that's interesting. You said is like for me too is like I had to really find for myself and hone in on myself, because when I first got here and the movies I was trying to do after my first film felt like I was trying to be something I wasn't, because I felt like I needed to be more artistic and be more. But really, when I was in film school, everybody was talking about Requiem for a Dream. I mean, I just wanted to make Bad Boys. So I had to really start to feel like, okay, and lean into that and realize that is the filmmaker who I am, which is someone that just embraces, speed and sort of a pulse and that energy, and stop trying to be, because I tried a slow moving horror film and I felt like it was just sort of a bust for me. I didn't really get even what I did. So, it's a really cool learning experience when you start to figure yourself out and go, okay, this is the kind of filmmaker I am, and I'm just going to lean into that and really enjoy it. I think that's part of the creative process, and it really is a lot of fun when you start to realize that.
Well, you get so many outside people telling you, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. I remember before Lady in the Water came out, Jimmy and I were working on a mermaid-based horror movie, and how many people were like, "Oh, you can't do a mermaid. Shyamalan's doing a mermaid." And I was like, it's like, and you see the movie, you're like, is he doing a mermaid or is he doing an apartment building?
What is he doing?
Right. Like, I don't know. It's funny how, because again, that goes back to people saying, well, I'm a genius. Why don't you understand why I'm a genius? Well, maybe you are, but sometimes other people aren't going to recognize it. And
right. But then it's a two-edged sword, because now you just get, well, we just want our John Wick. We just want our John Wick. Where's our John Wick? And you're just like, well, fuck John Wick, dude. We're trying to make shit over here. You know what I mean? Like, it's a great movie, but let's get past it. So, but it's funny how Hollywood works like that. They need the craziness, and then all of a sudden, we just want it real simple and straight. And then it's back to, well, look at Nolan, what he's doing. It's like you said, it's just, you got to find what you do really well, and you got to find the people that want to get behind you to make that really well, right? I mean, you've got to find the producers that get behind you and say, we believe this is what is cool, and we want to push that forward. Because I know for me, it's just an uphill battle at the studio system, where I've been involved countless of times, and it's just years off my life of daunting things that happen here or there, or it's just constantly trying to get through. And it's for me, I just decided very quickly that I was like, I'm just going to find producers that I love, that have cool content, and that I can figure out how to make that. And if the studios want to nab it, which they do, which is great, but starting at the studio and trying to put something together with them is almost impossible for my patience.
I feel for you. I get it.
So tomorrow, New Mutants comes out on DVD. So what are both of your thoughts on this movie? Like, was pushed back, I don't know how many times, and I was waiting for it to drop on Disney Plus, and then they dropped it into the studio like during the pandemic, and then now it's going to be released tomorrow. So what are each of your thoughts on that? Like, should it have been a different way? Should they just not have released it? to me personally, like I figured Fox paid for that movie, so why wouldn't Disney just drop it on Disney Plus and be like, you know what, here you go, here's some content.
You want?
Sure.
Yeah,
go
go
ahead. What do you got?
Oh, for me, this is all very difficult because, I see a lot of stuff. I see both sides of this thing. I see people who don't know anything about comics. They're so excited about all this material that's 30, 40, 50, some odd years old. And for me, it's sort of like, oh, look, they can actually do stuff now that they couldn't do when I was a kid. And, we had, aside from a valiant effort in the Hulk, we had some pretty bad stuff going on. And,
yeah.
But the thing is, like, there's such a division of I don't really understand what goes on with that, because they took Paul Jenkins' Inhumans and they made it unwatchable, and then they can take. It's just like there's something about the material that's not being conveyed 100%, so it feels kind of plasticky or just kind of thrown out there. And there's good performances. I really wanted to. I mean, more than anything, I wanted a Daughters of the Dragon TV show. But I could get along with Iron Fist and Daredevil, and by the novelty of saying, "Oh, look, this is that Frank Miller issue that they're transferring," and then they do the big budget stuff, and that's also hit or miss. So for me, I have a hard time just fanboying off of it, because I'm like, I've been in stuff for so long that I'm kind of like, oh, I wish they would have done this, or I wish they would have just put a little more effort into this. And it's kind of like Runaways started out kind of interesting and fun, and then it kind of broke down. And I don't know, these things some of them just don't seem to push into the material with as much love for the material, because the people may or may not have the same affinity for the material. It's just sort of, oh, look, we have another IP we can roll out and try and cash in on, rather than like they did with the first few segments of the Marvel universe, rolling it out. It's very hit or miss for me, and I don't think it's fair for me to say that, because it's just personal. It's not the quality level being made of it. Like, I didn't like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It just felt like a TV show. It just felt like there was nothing special about it. It just had designer brand on it, if that makes any sense. So, lipstick on a pig, I guess, a lot of times happens. And those things are so dear to me as a kid that those were like formative things that I was going through. And, I was experiencing those stories, and to see them sort of just rolled out as almost like a Hallmark Channel, sometimes quality of something, I have a hard time being objective about them. I mean, sometimes I love them, and it's just like the fan in me that I just can't get away from. And then sometimes I'm like, this is just not work. Like, New Mutants to me should be fantastic, but it was also not. It was a niche within a niche when it was even around. So it was kind of like edgy and trying to push out a whole new generation of X-Men, when you'd already milked that cow so many times to a certain degree of how people expected the X-Men to be. But I mean, I think
it's a really big issue of oversaturation.
Yeah.
I think once you oversaturate a market that the audience becomes numb to, you're having an issue trying to get that material to pop anymore. I mean, that's the problem that I see, is that there's just so much of it out there that you can't grasp to anything that you love, because it just doesn't feel like what you love anymore. And it feels awkward almost. And I think with New Mutants, it's not the same thing. It's like, in 2009, like you were saying, in 2010, when they were first starting to roll out some of the Marvel stuff and they were doing it incrementally, you had other players like the first Kick-Ass movie, right? That felt really true to it. It felt good with the material, right? It felt like it understood the material. And the studio was like, nah, we're just going to let them do, and do it happen. Now I feel like there's a formula to the system that they're trying to put that formula on every single comic book film, instead of letting each film be their own sort of voice. And I think we were seeing that very early on, like I said, with the first Kick-Ass and the first Marvel films, and they were sort of their own voice. And then it all of a sudden became that they all had to be uniform and sort of feel the same way. And then you have something like Deadpool that shocks everybody again, and then everybody's like, no, it needs to match Deadpool, right? We need to go that R-rated thing, and we need to push it into that world, instead of realizing that every single one of these things should have their own life and should have their own sort of visual style. And then
That's
if
what makes people
you-
like them, because they're
that's what
unique.
makes they're unique. They should not all feel the same. And that's why, to me, I think they have a hard time with the filmmakers they choose, because I think they look at a filmmaker. For me, it's really tough for me to understand why they put first-time filmmakers in a position to make these kind of movies, because I don't feel like they're ready to do it. They don't have an understanding of how you dance around all the politics of what's happening. They just get sort of rolled over, and then
I'm doing a Marvel movie.
I'm doing a Marvel movie. Yeah, man. And it's not even them. Then you're just talking to the DP who's really shooting it,
Yeah.
And so I think that's the biggest issue with these kind of movies, even with something like New Mutants that's coming. It's like, man, they should have just let it be its own thing. And for them dropping it, I mean, I can't speak to how they would, who knows how much they really paid for overall, or what it came with the Fox deal and all of that, and how much money they're losing right now to the pandemic, and they're trying to get back. So who knows all
Or
of
if
the
it's leverage for something else because someone had
Yeah.
a project that they wanted to.
Exactly. Who knows? And who knows if they have to get it out so it doesn't, lapse or whatever. I don't know the rights. I don't know. I don't know any of that. So it's really tough to say how they all work it.
Speaking to that, though, that's why, and this is probably unpopular, why I like Joker so much is because it was allowed to be its own thing, whether
Exactly.
you like it or not. You can't deny that there was like a genuine effort to make this.
But that's the point, whether you like it or not. Like,
Right.
I don't understand the idea of movies having to appeal to a mass audience or everyone. Like, I love the idea of making a movie that it's going to be polar, right? It's polar because that's how viewers are, and that's how it is with comics and movies. Is like, I like some shit that people love, and I mean, I don't like stuff that people love, and I like stuff that people hate. So I love that, and I think that's where most films are the most successful, when they sort of have that polarizing feel to them, and then you get in there and you appreciate them more.
That's why I've been making the comics I've been making, because I just don't want to. I don't want to play in that sandbox, because the sandbox has too many rules and too much history where you have to tiptoe around things because you can't do things because it might tarnish a brand, which again made me so interested in Joker, is that they weren't afraid of not selling lunchboxes and not making something palatable to everyone.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like the people that were so against fighting the man are now.
Yeah, I think Steve froze. It's just
Steve's frozen.
There he goes.
Nope.
Am I frozen?
We'll see if you know this. He's moving, but
Who, me? I'm frozen.
yes, there you go.
All right. Go ahead.
You're back now.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like
Like I said, my kids are on school too, so who knows how much internet they're using at
I'm
this
with
point.
you.
Sorry.
I'm with you, because in New Mexico, we just went back on lockdown again.
Right.
2 weeks, so I'm with you.
Yeah, my daughter's in quarantine next door.
Yeah, that's exactly. I know my kids are like right behind. They're just like trying to figure out what school is right now. I think our kids are saying they're going to get back. Our schools are saying they're going to try to get them back in January, but I think me and my wife are still like, we'll wait until there's better science that points us in the direction we should.
I mean, here they had a teacher that there's no kids at school, but there's a teacher that tested positive. So now they're like,
wow,
get it? They're like, we're not going back this year, for this
Right.
school year. So
That's what's happening. Is that it's all the parents. They sent out an email saying the parents are not following the rules, not masking. They're having gatherings, and now the teachers are getting sick. So you're not going to have enough teachers to teach the kids. So like, you don't understand. Like, to me, it makes me absolutely crazy. Like, we're all in this together. We're all trying to make this work.
Yeah, don't get me started on the PTA when I get in there in those PTA meetings. I'm just like, what are you people doing? Like, just stop having parties. Just stop for for 6 months. It's not a big deal. You're all going to survive. Then our kids can get back in school. These people are like, no, we got to go out and we're not going to mask. And then teachers are getting sick. It's like, oh my God, you people.
When I took my daughter out in February, but she had a cold, or it could have been COVID. Then I got the same. I kept her out the week, and I kept her out the week I was sick. And I was like, you're not going back. And they would call me from the school, and they're like, you got to send her. I'm like, if they're building hospitals in China in 7 days, that's a warning sign that something really bad is going on. Like, that's like, the nerd in me who has watched Harryhausen movies, kung fu movies, Godzilla movies, and I'm like,
You know.
no, there's a giant praying mantis that's gonna pop out. Like,
Yep, you know.
yeah,
We all know. We've all watched the same zombie movies too. We know how this starts. We get it. You know, that's the thing. Is like, and so for me, that's even why making a movie right now just seems like, it seems crazy because I'm gonna have to be on set, and I'm not a guy that can be like a mile away from everyone while I'm
Right.
directing a film. Like I have to be right there, next to camera, next to the actor to jump in there. And so for me, that just sounds like a nightmare, and
you
it
got
does not sound
that
fun.
megaphone that's just spraying COVID out the
Yeah,
front of it.
I just don't want to do any of that. It does
Action!
not sound fun. Not sound exciting to sit in the hell for 2 weeks, you know, to do things and then not be able to hang out with anybody. It just does not sound fun.
No.
So to that point, though, did you see how Tyler Perry's shooting stuff?
Yeah, I mean, he has his own studio though, so he's lucky with that.
I don't know if Justin saw this or
He
not, but-
basically
There's a bubble.
has everyone live there. Yeah,
Yeah, they
he
live
has his
there.
own bubble. He has everyone live there, and they all quarantine for 2 weeks, and then they go and shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
great.
what I
Yeah, that's
think.
cool.
There's got to be some interesting things that are happening that we're still not aware of yet, where people are innovating. Because people are constantly innovating, especially when you have like nothing to do and you're locked down. And
Yep.
like, I expected a lot more content, and I was kind of, to be honest, I was very disappointed that
All right, look who's here.
happened.
I think I'm an hour behind. You have to send me a reminder, otherwise I'm completely oblivious
All right.
what day
So,
it is.
welcome, Jimmy Palmiotti. Steven said he knows you, so I guess we don't have to introduce.
Hey, Justin,
Hey, what's happening?
what's happening?
Yes.
You got white in your hair, buddy. Oh,
Pandemic does that to all of us, I think.
Wait, I can fix that too.
yeah, put a hat on. There you go. My hair's just a mess. It's just,
Well, I'm the same way. I don't think I've had a haircut in like 6 months, so it's like getting ridiculous.
I have less and less hair to cut, so I'm just holding on.
Well,
I'm
I
holding
even
on
got to the point where I was letting my son cut my beard just for fun, just to see what would happen. It was a nightmare.
like a blowtorch.
Like
Yeah,
giant,
nightmare.
you have the hedge thing going on.
So we basically were just talking about what's been going on, you know, no cons, nothing, no filming, stuff like that. Just kind of went through Justin and you know, Steven's background. Steve and I are both Full Sail alumni, so that's how I know Steven. Like, we've never personally met, but I know, you know, he's a legend of Full Sail, so that's how, you know, I know Steve. I told them that you and I met 16 whatever plus years ago, Wizard World Philly. So what are you up to, Jimmy? What are you working on now during the pandemic?
Just Kickstarters, basically. No Marvel and DC stuff. I think I finished that a while ago, and like Justin, pretty much doing my own thing, and slowly, you know, we have to depend on artists. So as quick as we can write, they can't draw that quick. So you know, that's the way that goes. But yeah, finishing up the Pop Kill 3 and 4, which will kickstart in another week or so, and then we got a sex and violence book, which Justin did a story in that. That's the next one, and you know, from there, I think that's going to be my full-time gig for a while. With Amanda's finishing up the last Harley Birds of Prey book that we're doing, and then she's going to catch up on the work that she promised to do 10 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever Frank Thierry says. How long ago it was, Captain Brooklyn.
Captain Brooklyn. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's it. It's just been quiet. You know, the companies are using newer people, paying less, and you know, moving on from people. Obviously, the companies changed hands. DC's changed hands over the past year with AT&T and stuff. So there's a lot of change going on, but you know, I can't believe I'm saying I miss going to conventions, but I do.
I'm with you. That was my whole point in doing this, was that I wanted to bring creators and stuff together to just talk about shit that we would talk about after the, you know, Saturday at the con. We'd all meet at the bar. We'd all talk about what we were doing, you know, what's going on. And I missed it.
You talk about the people we met during the day. What are you talking about?
But I missed that stuff because it, like, to, you know, that was fun. And it hasn't even been a year, but you don't like realize like how many shows you go to until you don't have that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely miss that income. That's for sure. You know, Amanda would do very well at the shows. Me, I just take it from her. You know, so I take a piece of the action. But yeah, I mean, you know, the best part about the cons was obviously seeing everybody, hanging out with everybody, and seeing the fans, and hanging out with the other pros, and bitching about people, and all that kind of stuff. You know, the soap opera part. You know, I haven't seen Justin at a show since New York Con. I
haven't been to an event since
And he wouldn't come.
2015.
Yeah, so it's been a while. Yeah. So, but you know, for me, I think the travel too, because a lot of the shows, whenever they invite us overseas, Amanda and I kind of run to those, you know. So we're really, you know, kind of bummed. We were supposed to go to well, last weekend would have been Rhode Island, but we were supposed to go to Brussels and Italy and a couple other shows, and they all got canceled. Justin just got up to go to Brussels, so
Yeah.
I said when
I saw the flag.
that's a weird word. I say Brussels.
I'm gonna grab another beer. I'll be right back.
Yeah, but I bought a Pellegrino, so. But I'm sorry. I'm letting you know. Like I said, you have to kind of like tell me the day of. Unfortunately.
All right, but if I bring you back, we'll see because you're on probation now. But
well, I was out. I was outside, and my phone was inside. So when I came in, I was like, "Uh-oh."
No worries.
Like,
We're glad to have you.
screwed something up here. Sorry, Stephen, to keep you guys waiting on me.
So how do you and Steven know each other? Maybe we can go that route since Justin's stepped out.
What happened to Steve?
I feel like
He's got kids doing work at home.
I feel
So
like
he's
I am.
freezing up.
What's that, Steve?
I said, am I freezing a lot right now?
Yeah, a little bit here and there.
I think I'm gonna go out and come back in. That way, we'll see if it'll start back up.
Okay. So Random Acts of Violence came out this year.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
I feel happy. I don't know. I feel relieved.
Yeah.
Something actually got made. So
That's it right there. Something actually got made is
right. That's a nice feeling. Instead of us having dreams and promises shattered on a quarterly basis, that was actually something that got made, and it wasn't horrible, and it was fun. And you know, there you go, Steve. All right.
My back better.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy with Random Acts. There's an album, the soundtrack album's on iTunes right now, which is pretty good soundtrack.
Yeah, that soundtrack is awesome.
Yeah, and they made a vinyl too. I bought one online because I can't remember his name. Give me a minute or two, I'll find it. But they put out a vinyl version of the album, and then I mentioned it online, and he says, "Oh, I'll sign it for you." And I realized that it's Wade McNeil is the guy that did it, and I realized he put out the album, so that's kind of cool, you know. I tried to get posters for us, Justin, like
the Grindhouse posters,
like big movie posters of the movie. And they sent it to me, and the whether it's the Canadian post office or our post office dropped an airplane on it. The tube is a really solid tube, and it's crushed on one end. So I asked them to resend a couple of, you know, because I figured you'd want a poster for the room or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have it out now, but I have the Hills Have Eyes one that Eric.
Oh yeah. That's well, this one.
That's a great poster.
This one has your name on it too, you know, and
an AY or EY.
I don't know. I
Probably EY.
I got them and they're all damaged. So I asked them to resend a bunch, and I never heard back from them again.
I think it's Canada because I sent I had some Kalman Andrzejowski prints that I used in a Kickstarter, and the guy said they flattened it. I was like, really? Like, I bought this extra hard, whatever.
Yeah, and lately it's even when we use the boxes and the protective boxes, you and I are the same way. We don't care if it's bent. Like we just sit there and go, okay, it's bent. But 85% of the people that back Kickstarters like to complain about it's not mint, and that's kind of like the post office doesn't care about mint. It's as a matter of fact, I think when you put the thing "do not bend," it's like a brain thing where they go, "I must bend." Like I always feel like I'm tempting them by saying, "Please do not bend," and I'm like going, they probably weren't even thinking about bending it like the minute before,
Yeah, until they read it.
That Woody Allen movie with Christopher Walken, where he's like, "Do you ever think about driving in oncoming traffic?"
Yes, exactly. Play it again, Sam.
Random Acts of Violence or no?
What?
No, Steven, did you see Random Acts of Violence or no?
I did not see Random Acts of Violence. No. That's the Bruce Willis movie, right?
No, that's Jimmy and Justin.
The Bruce Willis one came out.
There was a Bruce Willis one that came out too, right?
Yeah, there was. It's supposed to be terrible, I heard.
I didn't see it. No, I didn't.
We got a cease and desist from our original title, so we had to change it.
Yeah.
Really?
It was originally Splatterman. Was originally the title, and then they Showtime had to sue us. So.
Really? No, I haven't seen it. Where can I watch it?
It's on. Well, if you have the Shutter.
Shutter.
Yes. I have Shutter.
Yes, it's on Shutter. It's Jay Baruchel directed it, and
I remember. Now I remember the one we're talking about.
Yeah,
okay, yeah, because I like Jay too. I think he's really cool.
What's the Jaws thing behind you? What's that big Jaws thing?
Oh, that's just like a blanket that my kids got me for Christmas last year.
Nice.
So it's just like a cover blanket over the couch. And
I love that painting.
Yeah, then they have they're really smart on what they get Daddy for Christmas. It's all random stuff, but it's usually cool.
I noticed you were representing Mr. Connery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I had that poster at one point. Remember, it was at Marvel.
Yep.
And then that one got stolen.
Oh.
They actually stole that, and it's giant. It's big. Right?
Yeah, it's big.
Somebody stole it.
How do you steal that? How do you? Yeah. How do you take that out of the office?
Yeah, well, we moved it. We moved when Marvel Knights, they moved us out of the 13th floor and put us in the 12th. And then one day I came in and it was the blank wall, and
that's crazy.
They stole it out of the office. So I had this one which was ripped. It has a rip through it, but Amanda's mom and I went and we laid it out flat and we retouched it so you can't see the rip anymore. And then I put it into my local bar down here in Florida. So they had it in the bar, but because of COVID-19, they had to close and they finally went out of business. So they returned the poster, and I have two giant Dave Johnson paintings upstairs too that used to hang in the bar. But so they gave me this back, and it's really big, so I just have it behind me. I guess I don't know what to do with it.
Jimmy, where in Florida are you?
I'm in Clearwater.
Oh, you're in Clearwater. Okay, cool. My parents live in Tampa, so I like that area a lot.
Oh yeah, they're 10 minutes away. Your parents. Yeah. I go see them all the time. I smell them weed all the time. Your parents. Know that.
I like that. I like that whole area though. The whole area is really awesome.
It's Florida, so there's like half crazy people, and
Yeah.
Well,
I know. I'm from Jacksonville, so I get it. I know.
There you go.
I know how it goes.
Yeah. I think Amanda's family is all up in Jacksonville way up there.
Right. Close to Georgia.
Look, it's like the 6th borough of New York. There's so many New Yorkers down here.
There is a lot
around here. It's like it's good and it's bad. They're a lot friendlier down here, but they're still New Yorkers. So you have to take the good with the bad.
Right.
And it's like idiots like me with the baseball caps running around.
I was gonna say you get yelled at by Tampa Bay Ray fans. I bet.
Nah, they're Yankee fans too. They're just.
Well, they have the training camp down there too, right? So they have the training camp down there. So
yeah,
they do. I mean, right near me, I have the Phillies and the Blue Jays are right near me, and then the Yankees are over the water. I see certain people every time that starts. Certain people come into town and ring me up, because they're going. But the Canadians for the Blue Jays, and then Yankees fans, and they're it's very baseball-y around here for a little time, and then the tourists come in for the beach after that.
Right.
So this year it's nonstop because with COVID, that it doesn't matter. Everyone in Florida is going to the beach. I don't know. We're all doomed.
Yeah. Yeah, for
I
sure.
was thinking of wearing a mask while I was talking to you guys. I realized I didn't have to. But I don't. There's so many crazy people out there. I just like going outside is like just a game and avoiding people. Well, Justin, you know that you have to avoid, right? Like just,
I can. I was in ShopRite in Scarsdale on a Saturday morning. There was 50 people online, winding down the whole store, blocking every aisle. You couldn't move in there, and everyone was like, "Why are you going against the grain?" And like everyone's angry, and I'm like, "This is not the apocalypse we were all promised."
is it down to like toilet paper stuff again up there? Or?
Oh, it is. It is here in LA for sure. Well,
Yeah?
I just tried to get it yesterday. There's nothing.
Well, for us, it's like Lysol, cleaning products, and then I know stuff you're not supposed to know. Like one manager of a store told me today, he's like, "I thought that was insider information." I'm like, "There's a aluminum can shortage that's going on, so a lot of diet soda plants aren't able to produce probably until next year because of COVID and like all these goofy weird things that just, again, this is not the apocalypse. I wanted my shirt off to be all buff and I was like driving a car and running over mutants, and instead it's like, do you have Fantastic? Why is there no Fantastic?
So wait, there's no cans? Like what is a soup? Like soup cans?
Well, no, it's like diet soda. For some reason,
Why do you need diet soda? I mean, that's
people love their diet soda.
so people like running to buy diet soda right now.
Like Diet Dr. Pepper was like gone for a couple weeks. Yeah.
Like people are more understanding now than they were back in May and June, where they're like, "Why is there no soda? Like you're lying." I'm like, "I'm not lying." I'm like, "I'll send you pictures. You know, like here's a picture of this shelf. It's completely empty. There's no baby wipes. So whatever you do, like, because people started doing that, they're like, "Oh, we can't get toilet paper." So then they started buying baby wipes.
Right.
And the weirdest thing to me, though, about the whole thing is people who eat baby food. I never understand that, which is fine. I mean, it's just a weird thing.
You have no teeth, right? I mean, why would you eat?
At one point, there was a diet fad where baby food was so full of nutrients, and people thought they were going to lose weight. I don't know.
Baby food's like diarrhea. You know, it looks like orange diarrhea. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
I don't know. We had the thing with toilet paper and paper towel, but so now they have it where you only can buy one roll.
Yeah.
And I was
laughing.
Paper
towels are still a thing, for sure.
What's that?
Paper towels are still a thing.
Because I remember Frank Thierry was looking for Lysol for a while, and I was like, "There's no Lysol anywhere," you know. But I didn't understand. I told him, well, there's 100 other things you can use, just alcohol. You know, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know.
No bleach, no liquid plumber. This is ridiculous. This is, again, really? This is the end of the world we were promised.
No, but there's plenty of frozen White Castle hamburgers, so you'll be fine. You know?
Yeah, there's a lot. That's why I started writing this thing. I was like, let me do an alternate version of like rad punk 80s stuff where you have to hire these crazy people who are immune to the virus to deliver a virus that only works for X amount of time. So like there's this crazy like punk rock chick that I have driving around all the time, delivering medicine and fighting off mutants and everyone. I'm having so much fun doing that because it's not fun doing the real thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't get what people prioritize. It makes no sense to me. And, you know, I think that they sold 1 million bidets this year, right? People just getting bidets instead of toilet paper, which is like, if I got to go that way, I got a hose outside. I can just just put it under a rock and let it shoot up and kind of hustle over to it. And,
that's what I love about some stuff where people are like innovating and they're like coming up with things to do, like the mask with the straw thing, which never really caught on, but it was kind of funny to see people sort of scrambling for how they're going to make their millions of dollars next off of a situation that's untenable. So,
or a guy that bought 10,000 hand sanitizer bottles and got busted in his garage. I love that guy. I'm like, you can't really pick on him too much. He's being an entrepreneur, you know. That is the American way, but I get having 10,000 of them is a little ridiculous. Yeah. What happened to Steven? Just
I think he had to drop. He was on for an hour, and then I think he had other commitments and stuff he had to go to. So
okay.
But I'll bring him back again. I didn't know, like he's a grad from Full Sail like me, and he's in the Hall of Fame, and he's like the best person to graduate from Full Sail because of what he's gone on to do. But he's also like a super nice guy, so that's why
Right.
I brought him in, because he's directed, he's screenwritten like you guys. He's done a lot for Lionsgate. Like a lot of the stuff he's done has been with Lionsgate, and I know like with you guys, it's kind of the same thing. Like Lionsgate seems to be the bridge for.
Well, we had Monolith at Lionsgate, and then that fell apart.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of we've had a lot of work at major studios that never went anywhere.
Yeah.
That kind of bragging right kind of like really just means nothing. Except that people think we're rich because of it. So that's the bad news about it, is people think,
It's all the rich guys drive for Instacart. Yeah. What we're doing these days.
Well, and it's funny because like I didn't know like the whole deal behind that until this last year when Aaron Campbell lives here and Jimmy knows him. They did Infidel, and then somebody was like, oh, okay, we want to do Infidel. And then, Aaron explained to me like what it actually is that they get while they hold that property. And, so I don't think a lot of people realize like you're only getting, thousands of dollars for somebody to hold your property,
right,
and decide if they want to.
Oh yeah, those initial deals
Yeah.
can be rough for people
Yeah.
that didn't have the right representation and people backing them up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the development deals, yeah, they could be, $5,000 to $50,000. It depends who, what, where, and when. And just because I always see people announcing they're making, they're gonna do a show on my thing because they have a development deal, and I'm always going, you poor bastard. I'm like, probably never gonna see that, but enjoy the press release. If press releases were money, we'd be loaded. Justin and I would have a lot of money, but it's like I said, a lot of things went nowhere. I still have faith in people will catch up with certain. I'm still putting the stuff out there. I have a whole new group that has our properties, and we'll see what happens. So I kind of, but I don't. You can't depend on it. It doesn't pay bills. Basically, you got to make money today. That stuff is like.
Yeah, and when you stretch it out and you say, well, I created something in 2010 and it got made in 2019, like,
right.
That's a long stretch of whatever that check is not made of taffy.
Yeah.
So.
Like the reality is, Justin's daughter will make money off some of this stuff, not us, like down the line, she's gonna go, oh yeah, I don't have the rights to that. Sure. Pay me. Yeah. That's the reality of a lot of that stuff. I mean, and then, and then we created stuff for the companies that, we'll never get back. And then we get those giant royalty checks, of $24, and we're like,
$5, yeah.
Yeah.
So then do you feel like Kickstarter is now like really the way to go?
Yeah, I mean,
your own properties. I mean, because everybody has like a Batman story and that that they would want to tell and whatever. But for me personally, and I brought this up before, like Jimmy, you and I met 16 or whatever years ago, Wizard Road, Philly. But it's funny. I pulled up an interview that I sent you for a now defunct comic website like 10 years ago, and your advice was to go to school for what you want to do. And do that. So for me, it was like I went to Full Sail for creative writing, and like I mentioned earlier, this has been the most successful year for me, comic-wise, because we put out something through Antarctic Press, which didn't whatever. I've had 2 successful Kickstarters. I'm going to do something for Heroes Initiative that'll drop in like January. So during the worst year ever, I've had the most successful year, comic wise, but it's all been like through creator-owned stuff, through Kickstarter. You guys really think like that's the way to go now?
Well, so it's your idea of success. What you view as being successful has everything to do with what again, you put it on yourself. So like with Justin and I, it's like every time we create something and we get it out there, whether it's a big thing or small, the idea it leaves here and goes onto paper and people can read it, that's a success. because and Justin, if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but the problem we have is too many ideas. Like,
yeah, there's definitely more material than money. So
yeah,
I'm with you guys because I'm like that too. Like I'll see something and then I'll be like, oh shit, I can write a story on, this or that or whatever. And, I'll come up with something, be like, well, shit, this would be a fun story. But then it's, like, and we talked about this earlier, but then it's be like finding an artist. So like, if I'm not a pro like you two, finding an artist and then debating on, how much is this artist worth? If they've never been published either and they think they're worth $200 and my budget is, like 100.
You always walk away from that though. Like you walk away from that because you have a budget. I mean, that is your budget. And you have to make the more determination of that is, can I get enough quality for my budget to make it the project I want it to be?
Sure.
Otherwise you're just chasing and some people work hard for the money and some people just take the money. And it's like, you have to get to know the person to a certain degree. You have to see them. I mean, it's almost an audition in the sense that they have to show you and you have to show them that there's some kind of middle ground where you're both going to succeed in whatever that endeavor is, whether it's partnering on something you have a belief that can be successful enough that we'll worry about the money later, or if you know that person is money driven and you have them for the period of time you have them and you get from them what you pay them in that period. And there's a lot of politics and positioning that goes on with that I didn't know anything about when we were doing comics for DC and commercial publishers.
Sure.
You write the script, you hand it in, and then it's gone. I mean, except for Jonah Hex, which we had an unbelievable amount of control over that will probably never happen again.
Nope.
In mainstream comics.
Yeah.
But you really have to navigate and get to know people, and there's relationship developments and creative people can be very
crazy.
I don't mean it to be negative. I mean it's just like it's an environment. You have chemicals that
watch and be like, if they want to create something, then this is probably, the way you need to go is to, through Kickstarter and find somebody that's
right.
Like I said earlier, for me personally, for the Kickstarters I've done, like I've given, a percentage of the IP to the artist. I'm like, you know what, this may never go anywhere, but if it does, you own, this percentage of the IP.
Which is fair.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'd say half of my career was spent on the phone or traveling or schmoozing or walking out or talking off.
I remember every conversation we've had where you're like, I spend all my day on the phone and I'm not creating.
Yeah.
Because I'm managing so many plates in the fire or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And then I have people call me with their problems and all that kind of stuff. And artists are very, they need a pat on the back, all the time. I know, because I'm one and Amanda's one. I get it, they start with a blank page. We also start with a blank page, but it's easier to write 700 horses come over the mountain, and than to draw it. So I get that. But a lot of the job, at least my job, has been navigating politics and when Justin and I were working together at DC and Marvel, it was a lot of the work I did was on the phone talking, getting the job, like wrangling the job. It was it's sort of like the in a bar in the rodeo. You get on that bull and you ride it for a while until you get the gig. Sure. And we had to go through a lot of bullshit with a lot of people, and we had to eat crow with so many.
I was saying earlier how much stuff we did for free, writing TV show Bibles.
Yeah.
Writing movie scripts that never went anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, working for people that had no clue what to do and telling us how to tell a story. That's the hardest part for me is some of the people we have had to deal with that have no sense of storytelling, telling us how we should do our job.
Sure.
Nothing more frustrating. But I came from advertising before that, and that's where you had to listen to your client tell you how you see the world is wrong and how they see it is right, and you have to do it. So I did have some practice, but never for the amount. Look, I love most of our editors. I love most of them. There's one or two that Justin and I we would like to take in an alleyway and stab to death. There's a couple that just
probably two.
Yeah, two. I said a couple. I know exactly which two. And then then there's the people that just they thought they knew what we needed to do better and everything. And through it all, I'm very proud of the work we've done, because we've done. Justin and I, we've done like everything, like every genre.
And that's what I wanted to bring up, like in this, in this video. It's just that like you guys have done a ton together for DC, but I guess I want to go back because Justin, you were a DC intern, right?
No, I was a Marvel intern when they were Jimmy and Joe were doing Marvel Nights.
I know, and Jimmy just kind of like started inking for, was it Mark?
Tex? I was doing backgrounds for Tex, and then I started getting inking work, and I didn't realize like how many people have done internships for Marvel and DC. Like I didn't know Tom King did that for DC. I never did an internship.
I thought just was DC. I didn't know he was Marvel.
No, but I didn't do internship with a company.
I know you did. Yeah,
I helped. And Justin worked with us on Marvel Nights, but we kind of like when that thing kind of wrapped up, we went right over to. Bob Harris hired us to write stuff for DC, and we just came out with 21 Down, Resistance, Twilight Experiment. Like we did all these original material, especially like I look at something like Resistance and 21 Down is way ahead of its time. They still read very well. A lot of the concepts, we're definitely like our timing was weird with a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And then
I remember they made a show that was very similar to 21 Down.
Medium.
Right. And there was another one too that was a guy.
Right.
I can't remember what that was because it didn't last very long. But I don't know. It's like you follow these, you kind of grab onto these things, and everyone's trying to say, what's the next thing and how do we imitate that success? So
Right. I mean, we've I'm convinced we've had a lot of material stolen and people used for other
Well, you definitely have a concrete example of that at one point too. I mean, there's a lot of ambiguity that goes on in that stuff, but there's definitely
I mean, I think there's but then and again, we go through something like and why working for the companies kind of sucks is we do something like Jonah Hex, we make it popular. We make it so they can approach it to do a film, and then they make a film and they want nothing to do with us, And if it wasn't,
and they make a film that has nothing to do with the material that made the character popular enough to make a film out of. So
right, and if it wasn't for the fact that I knew a guy from before, Andrew Lazar, he's the guy that got us on the set and everything. I mean, it wasn't for him, we wouldn't even nothing involved with it. And again, at the end of the day, I look at the film, I'm like, thank God we weren't. That didn't have our names on it, but I also look at it and say, my God, if they just gave Justin and I a couple of grand and 2 weeks to set, we would have made that movie 8,000 times better in a heartbeat.
Well, I was saying earlier before you got on that we saw scenes that weren't even in the film.
Right. Yep. The guy hanging and then pulling the guy off the hang. Yeah.
And I didn't even make the joke about my analogy for that film is when there's the runaway train and Jimmy jumps off the train. I'm like, the director jumps off the runaway train in the middle of the movie. I'm like, it's a little on the nose, but it worked.
Yeah, we definitely, look and you would have thought and you would have thought with Harley, they would have involved Amanda and I more. I mean, Harley was a dead character when they gave it to us. Not dead, but she was not. She was not. The book was canceled before, and
she was not being exploited at Wolverine levels.
Yeah, no. And then we got on that, and you think, sure, it's nice to get a set visit, but again, it's like you're doing an all-girl movie. You think they would grab Amanda and put her on as a consultant, or at least throw her in the second film while we were there. Like anything with her to celebrate that this girl did all this work and design work, and it's there on this. So like that kind of stuff just really pulls you away from saying, well, I'm working for these people, but they're not working with me. You know, I'm just creating product, you know, and again, we know that's the gig going in, but with the Kickstarter, at least we have a interaction with our audience. We don't need a big audience. Honestly, we just need enough to buy the book, to make the books. And if that's what I got to do from now on, I'm perfectly happy with it. You know, I hate.
That's the thing that I was talking about at one point. When you realize like your worst selling DC title makes somebody rich,
Right.
You know, like you could have a nice life with your worst selling DC title if you're just selling it directly to the people who love that DC title that you're doing.
Yep.
And the key is to finding those people and doing that. It's so lopsided.
Yeah, it is. And we found them. I mean, how many Kickstarters have you done, Justin?
12, and I have 3 more ready to go.
Right. And I'm on 16 with my next one, the 16th. So
I mean, I didn't count the ones we did together. I was just
you should.
what I've done.
Those are yours too.
I know, but that's what is that, like 25, I think?
Right. I mean, you know, and that's a nice library. And like I said, I think
like
the
yeah, I got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if you can find that a certain amount of people that'll support your product, that's all I really need, you know, honestly. At this point, you know, I don't check off a lot of boxes in publishing right now, you know, as far as being white and older and the end.
So, Jimmy, what are your thoughts about, you know, AT&T takes on DC, but then AT&T has all this debt that they need to cut back. So then it's like, I mean, I get it. You know, we don't need 8 Batman titles, but you know, it kind of feels like, you know, like with the cuts they've made, with the second round of cuts recently, you know, it feels kind of bad, I guess, for us. We're like, you know, I saw Fletcher was in the second round, and Fletcher's like the nicest guy you could meet at all the shows and everything else.
What does Fletcher do, though?
Well, yeah, I mean, he sets up the shows. I get it.
Right. There's no conventions. They probably won't do conventions. Look, the company's not the same company anymore.
That's the point of all this.
You know, it's not the same company. I feel it's become about licensing, and it's always been money driven. Don't get me wrong, but they're not even trying to pursue new ideas. They're going back to their basic stories. As far as for me, like DC Comics, if you like the same old stuff over and over, that's the greatest place to go and buy your comics. If you want to see another Batman story with the Joker, that's the place to go. You know, you're not going to see anybody reinventing the wheel there. It's all the same stuff over and over. You know, I can't.
They're just trying to imitate the Disney model of just you tier your audience up through their age groups,
right?
Which makes sense. It's incredibly successful. I can't argue that.
Absolutely.
But people like us who want to tell stories and want to do other things, there is a market for it, and you're fighting against a machine that is so. It's a formula, basically. That they perfected for decades.
They exist to make money. I mean, that's basically and create and engage IP into licensing and film and TV development and game development. Look, I love DC characters. I love Marvel. I love all those guys. There's fun stuff, but it's limited. And when I've already given them my heart and soul for the past 30 years. So, you know, I'm on to my other stuff. If I never have another success, it's okay. I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. Again, it's everyone's perception of what success is. That's really important to understand. You know,
and I'm with you on that because, like I said, for me, this has been the worst physical year it could be. But like comic wise, you know, we put out something through Antarctic Press. You know, we didn't have the greatest relationship with Antarctic Press, but I got something published. And then, you know, I ran a successful Kickstarter, and then I ran another one. So to me, it's kind of like it's good. You know, I love that.
Yeah.
And be able to put out, you know, my stuff and showing my stuff to people. So,
well,
I have a bad
well, that's my investment too.
You know, I'd rather tell my own character.
People.
Yeah, I'm a person that thinks the good stuff's coming all the time. It's like ahead. I'm always I don't look back too much. I enjoy looking. Look, I had somebody today on Twitter pick up a line from Daughters of the Dragon book. Justin and I did, and he said, "Who wrote that line?" I said, "That's Justin." Because I know right away, like that. I said, "That's all Justin on it." But it's so much fun to look back at it because it's like that was a great series. Like that series we were on fire with everything.
But you think we were doing a modernized version of exploitation that wasn't exploitative, and I'm like, I remember Reggie Hudlin loved that book, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, it was. I remember going to Italy and they had a gigantic edition of it. Like it was blown up big. And I wanted to get it, but I didn't want to carry it because it was almost bigger than my suitcase. It was like they did a special edition of it. But I look at that and I'm like saying, yeah, it's better than all the other versions of those characters to me because it actually caught what made them fun.
Yeah.
They literally, the guy pointed out they had they met the Punisher to get some weapons, and that Misty's conversation with Frank was just so natural. Like they'd known each other their whole lives. And I said, to me, that's the Marvel Universe. Like everybody's known everybody and borrowed shit from each other. And so that's how we wrote that series. And, and again, like I said, I look at, and I think we're the same, Justin. We look at characters like Misty and Colleen and say, these are much better characters than half of the characters you got going on in your main books.
I said earlier, I would have much preferred a Daughters of the Dragon TV show than Iron Fist.
Yeah.
I like those characters and I like them, but I thought that they didn't really capture like what you could do with that from the base material. And I get that people are like, oh, no one knows that base material anymore, but that doesn't mean anything. Tarantino's proven that you can reinvent base material that no one knows about.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem with all the Marvel TV shows to me, where they were so dark, I couldn't get into them because they were so dark and so heavy and gritty. And I was like I didn't see the joy in them. Like there was the joy was like taken out of them, and the playfulness of the characters. And I like I said, I think that's why they're where they are right now. I think they're all in their own locker right now. They had a couple of years, and somebody else will reinvent them 5 years from now. Yep. And that's what I'm talking about too. It's like we're in a business where they keep reinventing everything 2 or 3 years. We'll have somebody new on Harley in a couple of months, and that'll be the new Harley writer. And that's the end of that. It's somebody who will eventually do Jonah Hex, and it'll suck because ours was the best.
I agree with you.
We weren't allowed to bring any ancestors of Jonah Hex into the book, but somehow they got in there anyway. So
yeah, I bought this though. So I say we're the best, but actually, these guys really, Fleischer and Albano and
Tony.
As I bought this, and I had to have the store special order it because they didn't get one for the store. So because I was hoping we would have like a 2-part omnibus eventually with our hexes in it, but I think we have to die.
When we die, it'll happen.
Yeah, when we die. But this book is great. And I kid when we say we're the best because I love these books.
Yeah.
But we did something that was again different artists. We worked with the.
Well, and I think that brings to a good point. Like it's Darwin's birthday, so how did you guys get Darwin to on to do Hex?
I'm still mad at him for dying, so I'm just gonna get that out of the way. Amanda and I still curse him every day for kicking the bucket. How we got Darwin?
Jonah was, his stuff in general is amazing, but the stuff on
Jonah. I don't feel like we got him. I feel like we all got along. There was a relationship there that had nothing to do with comics, other than the fact that we were all in the same industry. But the personality types, we were drawn to each other.
Yeah.
It really wasn't about like, okay, we should jam together. Like a bunch of musicians all play in the same bar.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
that's my favorite cover from Darwin for Jonah Hex. I was just
you see behind me.
Yeah, you got a page on the wall. Yeah.
And it took Patrick to get Justin to sign this. He had to mail it to Justin to get him to sign it.
Patrick's great with that.
Right. Can't figure out how to work this thing.
Let's see. Pull it back a little bit now. Tilt it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a great piece.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's when he says 50.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
50 people that issue. 50 people died in that issue.
The cannon in the outhouse is my favorite one, though.
And that panel, that piece of artwork, is in our bathroom. Darwin put it in a frame and hung it on the wall. So the sneaky part about Darwin is
I love this story.
every room in our house has something Darwin did, whether it's a table, whether it's his cup with his face on it, whatever. But in the house, there's something of Darwin's in every room, and we don't know if he just did that or on purpose or it just happened by accident. But yeah, Darwin really liked the stuff Justin and I did, and he was one of the few creators that would yell and scream that these guys are better than you idiots. Darwin was very much big fans of ours and thought we were just ahead of the curve too much, and so much so that he would illustrate once in a while the stuff we did to show how much he felt that way. And that's how we got the 3 Jonah Hexes, which are great because in that Darwin Cook art book, they put them one after the other. So it kind of like reads like one big story,
Nice.
Which is
I remember having a talk with him about the one that you have the cover for, and I said it would be awesome if you would do A Boy's Life, one of those old magazines that kids used to subscribe to in the 50s, and they get them sent to the house.
right.
Just kind of like a really dark version and violent version of A Boy's Life, and he immediately understood what that was, and that's. I don't even know what to say, but
Yeah, and 50 in the last issue, he loved Tallulah Black, and he felt that was like he wasn't going to do the books unless Tallulah was in them. So the stories were catered to the relationship with Hex, and those 2 books, some of the best reads in the whole series because it just the emotional part of Hex, the Jonah that was hopeful on some level, and then the price he had to pay in 50 for being hopeful. And then Darwin actually changed our script for the last issue. He put Jonah in a boat with Tallulah. It was supposed to be they go off with horseback into the sunset. And Darwin was like, "Fuck you guys! I'm putting them in a boat. They're gonna go in a boat." And I'm like, "We don't
what
care."
are you gonna say? Oh no, don't do that.
Yeah, you're like, well, it's funny too because he drew Tallulah naked in the original pages, and DC pushed the book back and said you have to cover her breasts and her butt, and we were like, why? Like we didn't understand why because it wasn't sexual and it wasn't, it's a shame because it should have went to print just like that, But again, worked for a company.
Well, I remember I was like, there at one point I don't remember who said it, but they were like, oh, she's just a female version of Jonah Hex, and I'm like, she's not that. She's not. You're not getting the nuanced difference. And why he likes her is because they have similarities, but they're not the same.
Yeah. We know who that was. I know who that was. Who said that. He no longer works up at Marvel.
Sorry.
At DC, I mean. But, well, like I said, if you surface read something, you never get the full, comics are about slowing down and reading, not surface reading. That you have to kind of look at what's going on, and there's nuances with art and storytelling that have to be slowed down. And I think a lot of people just look at they're so used to watching TV that they can't read as well.
And this was a conversation we had earlier when you weren't on about how they thought bite-sized media was going to be so successful, and they still haven't figured out how to make it work.
That Quibi was nope, that didn't work out. It's too bad. It took a couple of $1 billion for them to figure that out. But I agree with them that COVID hurt it because it was made for on-the-go entertainment for phones. And once you have the virus, nobody's using their phone to watch TV anymore. As a matter of fact, the TVs got bigger.
Yeah.
Did he have enough? He just split. That was it. He was like,
that's it. Mark's done.
Mark said, let's look at his wall. What has he got there? I don't know what some artwork, nice work anywhere on the wall.
Venom crotch shot.
Yeah, I don't know what that crotch shot thing is. I don't know. What's that big crotch shot thing you got behind you?
That is Chris Bocciolo.
Oh, Chris Bocciolo.
Yes. No, it's Bocciolo. So I learned this the hard way.
No.
He came to Albuquerque last August.
No matter
And
what he says he's wrong, it's the way I say it.
So he told me it's Boshalo. But so I'm trying to find a picture. So I got one picture with Darwin, and it was at Planet Comic Con, and he looks like the disappointed dad in the picture with me. He's just kind of like, you know.
I don't have a lot of photos with him. Other people have photos of us together, but I don't have a lot of photos because I never sat around and said, let's take a picture of me and you.
Sure.
It wasn't a thing I did. Other people would take them. And, you know, initially, if you took a photo of him, there'd be a finger or he'd be that part of drunk where he was all huggy. So it was either one or the other. You had huggy or angry.
Mine is like the disappointed dad. Like I'm kind of looking down too. Like I'm the kid that did something wrong, and he's kind of the disappointed dad, like looking at me.
Justin would have little meetings with him, with cigarette smoking meetings, right? You'd go outside, and I remember New York Con. You guys go out there and smoke a cigarette for 3 hours.
He used to call me Angry Guy, and I'm disappointed that he hasn't seen 2020 Angry Guy, because that's a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's funny him calling you that too. That's kind of funny. But anyway, you know, Darwin definitely had he'd rail about things. He'd rail. The only person I knew that besides Marsha that was able to control him was Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
He was literally afraid of Amanda. If he never wanted to disappoint her, and if she said something to him, he'd like snap to it like that. You know, I think it's like a very sisterly brother-sister relationship there that was very interesting to watch. I
letter all my comics based on the conversation we had when he didn't understand what Benihana was. As I was telling him a story about going to Benihana, he's like, Benny Lava, who's that? And I was like, so now I letter all the comics under the pseudonym Benny Lava.
I love that name. Benny Lava is great.
That's great.
That's got, that's, you know, just, that's got to be like a comic you do, Benny Lava.
Yeah, I see him as like angry Indian gangster.
Yeah, Benny Lava.
Too, from Bollywood, a weird Bollywood movie. Yeah.
Yeah, you just turn so red, you know. Benny Lava, man. That's it. That's your $1 million idea. Right?
No one escapes his office because they can't get across the floor. That's what happens.
His shoes are always tight. That's his problem. His shoes are. So he's always angry because his shoes. He's like, my feet must be getting larger. My shoes are always tight. But it's just his kids keep swapping out his shoes for a size shorter. And we had a guy we worked with. His name was Bob, and he would drive us a little crazy at an ad agency, and he was always giving everybody his peace of mind, and sometimes it was a little too much pieces, and we'd get pissed off. So anyway, he always wore that real traditional 1950s hat, you know, in the office. And so every day we'd get the hat and stick a sheet of paper around inside the rim, you know, and we'd make it like every day, and it'd make his hat tighter and tighter. And subtly, somebody in the office would say, you know, you have more hair today? Your head looks a little bigger today. So it took us like 3 months to get him to the point where he thought his skull was getting larger because his hats were getting tighter and people were commenting about the size of his head. It was very planned. You know, it took a while, and we eventually drove him mad, but you know, it's I don't know why. It's like, I like long jokes that take months.
I don't know why I like
but poor Bob thought his head was enlarged. Like, and he was asking people, do you think my head's bigger? Because he couldn't put on his hat after a while. Yeah, it's not a nice thing to do, but it's better than yelling at him and getting him upset. So,
or giving him COVID.
Oh, COVID. Do you have any? I have a friend that has COVID right now.
Yeah.
And he's complaining all the time. So, but he's number 8. 8 people I know that have it.
All I hear is people who don't believe it exists.
Well, you know, they usually have a certain kind of hat or shirt on.
Not getting smaller.
They usually yelling at the air and not believing anything. Oh, there you go.
So here's the picture. So Darwin looks like the disappointed dad, And I'm like the kid that was just disciplined.
Yeah, I guess.
Or maybe he's just been there for so long, he's tired and he's just taking a picture.
What if he was wearing a priest outfit? How would the photo read then?
Like, yeah, this guy's done.
I remember he got so mad at the guy. They went up to Jerry, and I feel terrible for not remembering Jerry's last name because he created the Joker. And this guy went up and was
Robinson.
disrespecting him, Robinson. And Darwin was furious. And he chewed this guy out. And he was like, "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" And I was like, I know why I love Darwin. It happens.
I've seen Darwin where Darwin took on. We were in Baltimore, and he took on like 4 commissions, and these people wanted their characters, and he said, "All right, don't pay me now. Come back at the end of the day. I'll have you 4 drawings for you." Okay. Well, Darwin being Darwin, he signs a little bit, goes to lunch, has a drink, whatever. Sitting in the bar, and he decides, you know what? I'm never going to get to these sketches. So he does these 4 headshots, right? And he uses like a black and white markers, and he does these beautiful superhero headshots. And then he gets like a bluish marker and it's a second tone on him. Stunning, right? So he's like, okay. He goes back to the con. The 4 guys are there at the end of the day. He goes, guys, I couldn't get to your drawings, but he hands them each this 8.5 by 11 kind of drawing. To each he says, "Here, this is on the house for you guys. I'm sorry I didn't get the commission. This is on the house, no charge." 3 of the guys happy. Oh my God, this is so cool. I'm glad. The 4th guy takes it and puts it back in front of Darwin, and he says, "This is not what I wanted." And Darwin's like, "Well, I'm sorry I couldn't get to your drawing, but it got a little complicated today. It was busy, blah, blah, blah. But here, take that. That's on the house." And the guy's like, "No, I don't want. I wanted my drawing." And Darwin, and the guy's insisting. He goes, "I hired you to do this drawing, and where's my, Darwin takes the drawing and rips it in front of the guy. He goes, "Now you got," throws it at the guy. He goes, "Now you got nothing." Like that. And anyway, the guy had to be pushed away because he started getting into Darwin's face a little bit. And I think it was me, maybe it was Frank, maybe a couple of guys. We had to walk the guy away from Darwin. And again, in Darwin's defense, he was trying. He really hung in there, being nice to this guy. But the guy was like a kid. He just started yelling at Darwin. "I asked for this, and all day I waited for this." And that was Darwin in a nutshell. Though he'd give you anything you want, but if you're gonna be a baby about it, he would be the first guy to kind of remind you that hey, I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
That's what sucks though, because like I know for a while there, Amanda wasn't doing sketches at shows, and it's like people don't take the time to realize that if you're working on a book, you may not have time to do those, and at a show, it's like that time is when you go back to your hotel room or whatever, and you don't want to work the whole time you're there. For you guys too, it should be like a cool time to go to someplace you've never been, talk to fans, stuff like that.
Darwin was perfectly fine chatting with people and signing his name on a book. No problem. But if you're asking for a drawing, he has to put his full attention. Same thing with Amanda. She has to stop everything and draw. And I get it, because at the end of the day, you're only going to do 4 or 5 of those, and you're ignoring everybody else. And the thing about being at a con is you have to be accessible to everyone. You're there for everybody. You're not there for only 4 guys that want to get their drawings so they can go home and I don't know, look at it. So
there's kind of like a young hustle thing involved with doing the things too. Like if you're going there for someone who is as prestigious as Amanda or Darwin, you have to realize you're only gonna get as much as there is to get. It's not like he's there to make money because he's an indie guy. He's
right.
there to have fun, see his friends. He's not there to generate 6 months worth of revenue.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And they'll both talk to you like,
right.
Both chat with you. They'll both sit there, and if you say, "Hey, you ever see this film?" Darwin will be the first guy. "Oh, all right, that film, I'll tell you about." Same thing with Amanda. She'll engage you if you want to speak about something. But if you're going to be a little dicky about, expecting things, Amanda always says, I'd rather say hi to everybody than to ignore everybody while she's sitting there. So, I mean, and that's what happens is you put your head down and you're ignoring people, and that's not right. You're there for everybody. You're not there. Convention, you're supposed to, say hi to everybody and at least get a little smile out of people once in a while. And your first impressions are always important, right? It shows. So, but anyway, Darwin had he had that little bit of temper to him that I liked because it was always entertaining. But he wasn't like that with his friends, and he wasn't like that. Like,
it was funny when you introduced me to Darwin. I was just being like smart ass mode. And I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting next to Darwin Cook. Oh, Darwin Cook, you're so famous. Oh, Darwin. And he was like laughing. And some people could have gotten really angry and thought I was actually hazing him on purpose or being a jerk. And he just was like, what is wrong with you? Like, I don't know, just making fun of you because, every once in a while we all got to be grounded. And he was always grounded with me. He was never anyone who thought, like you look at his stuff and you're like, you're doing genius work, but he didn't have that attitude of like, I'm a genius. And then when you meet people who think they're geniuses all the time, it kind of, when you and I have met people, and I remember we were out one night and there was someone who was having a certain amount of success in Hollywood and was being absolutely terrible to everyone. And at one point said he could buy and sell whoever was working at a door. And I was like who wants? Then I'm like, the only story that you need to learn, or the lesson you need to learn from that, is that guy's nowhere now.
Yeah.
Being a jerk at the top of the world just sends you to the bottom faster than anything.
Yeah, there's definitely the people have a very inflated opinion of themselves sometimes, and it doesn't go over well with people that are grounded.
Yeah.
It doesn't really and because we know, like, we meet the Bernie Wrightsons and they're the sweetest guys on earth, and you're like saying that guy has every reason to brag and be like, and of course he's the complete opposite. He's this down to earth guy that wants to talk to you and talk about brushes and chat with you and have a beer. And Steve Dillon, I remember Steve would just be like the sweetest guy, just like he would draw on a napkin for Noel at the bar, but he was like grounded. These are grounded people that didn't have that kind of, I see writers have that more than artists, by the way, have that kind of fake bravura that I'm amazing kind of guy,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, there you go. That's when I met Jimmy back in 2000, early 2000s at Philly. And I'm pretty sure you were at a booth with Phil Noto.
Well, that's Phil Noto art in the back. The piece on the top is with the girl right in the middle. That's Phil. But that's Albert Moy's booth, because you see between us it says Albert.
Oh yeah, I didn't even see that. Yep.
Yeah, that's Albert Moy's booth behind us. Yeah.
So I kind of talked about this earlier. Like I read Marvel Knights Daredevil.
Get rid of that picture.
Ever. I thought this was the coolest shit ever. I went and Wizard World Philly. You and Joe were both there, and Joe was at the Marvel booth. You were at apparently Albert's. I thought Phil was there with you, but I guess not.
Maybe.
You're the nicest guy. You talked to me about, I told you I love this comic. I told you I wanted to do that. You gave me your email. You're like, hey, come out tonight. We're going to be down here at the bar. We hung out. I sent you my script that was written as a book. You were like, hey, this is good, but and you sent me a hex script and said, hey, you know what? You should follow this and see how it goes.
Yeah, it sounds like me.
And you don't remember any of that, but
No, at one point I was trying to do inking, and Jimmy said, stick with what you're good at. And I was like, most people would be offended, but I was like, he's right. Like, well, I can't get mad at him because I know in my heart of hearts, I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't be doing this.
You've been a great writer since day one. So, like I just said, imagine you wanted to ink and you were going to stop writing. So I don't like that, you know, it's funny because sometimes I hear stuff like that. I'm like, I should have never told you that. I should.
No, it didn't bother me because I'm not the kind of person who like breaks down from that stuff.
Right.
So I was like, all right, thanks, but maybe let me see if he has a point. And I was like, yeah, he has a point. Okay, good.
You know, I am wrong a lot, which is the other problem that I have looking back. But you know, I always felt like if you do comics, you got to do everything. Look, eventually, Justin, you'll be drawing your own Kickstarters because you're gonna eventually lose your mind with some people, and you're gonna draw. And
now I'm working very hard in my selective process. The people I work with, are actually amazing, and
you have great artists.
They're doing great stuff, and they're
one thing I can say that people you pick are like, you know, storytelling wise, they're really good. You know, I struggle with some people because I like to give them the benefit of the doubt, and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. You know, but I think you know, eventually I'll probably be drawing something. But I find it hard to write for myself because I'm writing towards my weakness or my strengths. And so it might be easy to have somebody else write something for me to draw. I told Amanda that. I said, I don't think I can write for myself, right? Because I can draw. I sit here and I doodle all day. Like I draw all day. I just inked this over Claire Wendling. And I did it real quick. But Claire had a pencil drawing online, so I just printed it out, and I said, "Oh, I could tighten that up a little bit." I don't know if you can see it, but
no, it looks great.
Yeah.
But,
you fight with yourself, like you fight with yourself.
I fight with myself. Yeah, I drew that the other day. Some Gary Jonah. I just don't like. I kind of like it. Drawing is tough. Like for me, it's like I like doing it for fun, but the minute I have to start something, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. You know, or I don't like the way that looks, or. And it's, you know, Darwin used to yell at me all the time because he'd be like, yeah, you could draw better than this guy, you should be, and I'm like, yeah, but you know, I could probably color better than some people, but I don't do that either.
You can color better than me. I know, I learned that.
Yeah, you color and you letter, right? So
no, I don't color anymore. I learned that lesson.
Oh, okay.
It was hard. It was like 6-8 months of me trying to boot camp myself into coloring stuff, and I was like, I don't have it.
I mean, I could color with watercolors, but I don't digitally. It's different.
Right? Yeah. I can't take line work, break it down, do flats, then color it. So I get that totally.
Yeah, the flats and all that other stuff is hard for me. Like old fashioned way I could do. You know, especially gray tones. I love doing a gray tone on something. You know, because I
over too many things like details of lighting and reflection and stuff that I'm just like I make myself crazy.
Yeah, and I look at stuff, and I even now I'm looking at myself, and I'm like going, oh, I like the lighting, the rim lighting here. You know, how would you do that for color? And I realize I'm look like I'm red, which is the camera is just weird.
I'm definitely red. I had to turn my light off. If I have the light on.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's too bright.
It's way too bright. It's too reflective.
You're looking like Commissioner Gordon. You look like.
I know. My joke is that I'm turning into Gary Oldman. I'm gonna.
Gary Oldman. That's it. Yeah, you look like Gary Oldman now. It's not a bad thing, buddy.
Everyone.
You gotta grow your hair out though, and then
you gotta look at the ceiling.
I'm not growing it out. The early part of quarantine, I posted on Instagram. I had full Gary Oldman going on. Marky Wahlberg is dead. It's Gary Oldman now as I get older. So
awesome. That's not a bad thing. Gary Oldman's a good look.
Yeah.
You know,
he's a better actor, so I guess I'll go with that.
Yeah, he's a much better. I mean, the guy's great.
So do you guys think that it's better, maybe easier, I guess, for new artists to break in through Kickstarter than to try to pitch to, you know, some of the bigger publishers?
If you're a great artist, you'll get work like that. That's my rule. If you're a great artist, you'll get work tomorrow. If you're
but financially, like, I mean, so like, let's look at it like financial side. Do you think it's better to go Kickstarter?
Kickstarter's a lot of work, man. You know,
I'm with you because I didn't realize how much crap I was going to have to do with the first Kickstarter we did. And Jimmy was nice enough to do a cover for us for our Space Cooler book. And I didn't realize like how much shit I was going to have to go through with, you know, getting it printed, getting it mailed, doing all this stuff. Like, you know, So I guess there's a plus and negative to it. You know, it's cool. I mean, it's awesome to do Kickstarter because you own everything, but then it's also
it's work. I mean,
I
it's
got
all work.
these are Kickstarters I got in the past week. Okay, I like the title of this one. I don't love, but I the Justin, you got it down, right? The Kickstarter, you got it down.
Man. The guy's like, I got 3 more I need to drop before the end of the year.
Well, I definitely felt like I failed for a good 2 years, just like not knowing enough and not knowing an audience and not knowing, just being caught up in this fact that I was like, I'm going to do what I want to do and not really thinking about all the logistics and the other end of it. And a lot of times people say, well, oh, I want to do a Kickstarter. And they say, what do you have? Well, what's involved? And I break it down to like price point per unit. And everyone's eyes kind of glaze over and they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, like there's the creative thing, but then you have to be the industry that pushes your own creative thing into, and then try not to lose your shirt doing it. I mean, my thing is always breaking even because I'm playing the long game, but you know, and COVID comes along, and how long is the long game? But
well, you know, it's funny. I hung back on the Pop Kill one for a little bit because I said, well, with COVID, maybe I shouldn't do this. And then it hit me one night. I'm like, no, people are bored.
Yep.
So this is probably the best time for me to get this stupid book out because
it's sorry, I'm a 4-year-old here.
Okay. So I realized that, oh my God, you know, this is the best time because people are bored. They have nothing to do. They're going to back Kickstarters. Look, there's a lot of people doing them, but I will still use the argument. Most of them suck or they're not selling it correctly. You know, you look at it and you're like, that's nice art, but I'm reading it and I'm not being sold. You know, it's just like, there's nothing unique about this or I'm really picky with them. I back a lot of them. Don't get me wrong. I back a lot of people's stuff, but I'm picky because I look at it and go, you didn't sell it to me. I think the best video, you know, I don't do the videos that much anymore because I found it people don't even look at it. They just, you know, and I'm not that good at it, but when somebody overproduces it, it's kind of fun, you know, you can tell their heart's in it, you know, it's just a very strange thing because a lot of people got into it. I had a lot of pros emailing me and they still do, saying, hey, how do I get in on this bandwagon? And then I explained to them the shipping and printing. Yeah. And they're like, wait a minute, you ship all those? I'm like, oh yeah, man. You know, I said, let me show you some pictures.
It's not like you're like, oh, I found a pot of gold and now everyone wants a pot of gold. It's work. It's
but they think it is. A lot of people think it's like, oh, I just got to ship these things out. And I'm like, yeah, it's 1,000 books. And, you know, you have to fill out a customs form for those. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you do that.
So all of a sudden you're paying $3 more for shipping than you didn't calculate into your earnings. Yeah.
I mean, you know, I thank God I have Patrick here because Patrick's like, he's my godson. You know, he's like, okay, Patrick, you know, where are we with this today? And, you know, it's nice to have help, but you're a one-man crew, Justin. I know that, right? Unless your daughter kicks in.
They did help me with the last Spicy Pulp fulfillment,
right?
But they kept calling me boss, which I didn't really like very much. So
yeah,
I decided maybe I'll just do the stand on my own.
Nobody busts your balls better than family. So
yeah,
but yeah. So you know, I look at it. I have Pop Kill 3 and 4 is one Kickstarter that's coming. Sex and Violence is coming up. You know, I'm waiting for like 3 more pages and then the book's all done, right? And then Justin, your story's been done forever, and you know, that's ready to go. And then I have like 2 more that I'm waiting for the last pages come in. You know, and I, you know, Justin and I are the same way. Like we don't really solicit them until they're almost done. Like until we feel like we have.
I think that's what you have to do too.
Like that, Darwin, Justin. You know, I think you're like that, right? Where you don't really.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I get a little overeager because I see a new piece of art and I'm like, oh my God, you guys got to see this. So I have to fight myself on that. I've been sitting on a piece from Antonio Brandao, who did a Lady Redbeard piece with Sean Forney doing colors. And I was like, all right, I have to hold it back. I can't show it to everyone. But yeah, I try to do it. And we both discussed the fact that you layer them so that you make sure you're delivering, because people want to know that you're going to deliver, because there's so many flakes who don't deliver or deliver sporadically or pieces and everything else. So I can definitely tell you on these next 3 Kickstarters, they're all going to be done. And God help me, I need to raise money on them because I'm stretched to the limit paying all these artists. I mean, there's 3 different artists on Spicy Pulp, and there's artist colorists on the 2 other books. So
yeah, I mean, on mine, everybody's like you. I pay everybody up front.
Yeah, everybody gets paid, and then I'm like, please make my money back so I can start doing the next book.
I have an Adam Hughes cover on Pop Kill.
You bastard!
What's that?
Of course you do.
I didn't get it from Adam. Dave Johnson got it from Adam because they used to work in the studio together. And I can do a Kickstarter just with this cover, and it will raise money. Like that's how amazing, but it's even better than you think. It like he went, because I told him, I said, it's okay because it's a chase cover. You can put nudity on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Adam just outdid himself. And I can't wait to do that Kickstarter just so I can say, or you can get this cover.
Right.
And because it's going to be like,
going to dump their money on that one.
I want that. They're just going to rip the cover off and throw out the comic. And, but it's nice when I get what you're saying, because I want to show it, but I don't want to show it until I do the campaign.
You have to build everything has to be in place for the strongest possible initial punch.
Yes.
And you're so excited in the mind. You're working on it for months and months before anyone can see it.
Yeah.
And there's only so much you can hype with your own text and your face until they see the artwork, because artwork sells everything. It's not, I could say whatever I want, I could be the salesman, but nothing sells you like the artwork. So
right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But, and I think that's what's like interesting, is because, for the 3 of us, like I'm coming as the newcomer, nobody knows me, I've written this story, but I was lucky enough that Jimmy did a cover, Andy Kuhn did a cover, Victor Santos did a cover, so that, for me coming in as a nobody, I've got to sell that cover for somebody to read my book. Justin's coming in as, a known writer, and then you've got to sell it on the art, because now it's like, we know Justin, but who's the artist?
But they're still feeling on that for sure.
I
mean,
Jimmy's coming in as just Jimmy, so it's like, oh, we'll buy that.
That's a lifetime of selling myself like a whore.
Yes.
That's 30-something years of banging a drum, going, look at me.
Yes.
But look, when we did our first Kickstarters, like I said, Sex and Violence, those 2 books, it did very well, and
that's how I got the Spicy Pulp. I was like, wanted to do more, and you kept saying, I felt like you were always pushing me, like there's not enough of this stuff going on, and I was like, all right, let me just push that element out of it, and that's where I saw the most revenue being generated in terms of like getting the most people to back it. Right.
People love, I always say they have to give them the stuff they can't get anywhere else. And right now you can't, adult comics are not coming out. I mean, look, the black label line at DC, we can't put any nudity in that book.
Yeah. So,
okay. It was,
well, unless you're writing Batman, and then you can slip.
No, that was once, and that was it. So no Batawang. So you don't have that in comics. The language, the black label stuff is watered down. Amanda calls it the gray label, whatever we call it, But you have to give them stuff that they can't get elsewhere. And again, the collect. So you're selling to like people who want new stuff, people who want adult stuff, people who want limited editions of things, right? There's a collector sensibility. So it's like I'm always thinking about those things. Like, why would I buy this?
Sure.
Why would I buy that level with that cover? And I'm not a person that buys different covers from comics, but if I have a choice of covers, I'm definitely picking a certain one. You know, if I go to the store, but I wouldn't pay more for a cover. Like I feel like it's a piece of paper. But there's a collector's mentality, you know.
Which I love. I fully embrace that. I think if that makes you have like when I do stuff, I'm like, what makes you happy? Like I'm so tired of being restricted. I'm so tired of not being able to just say and do whatever I want. If I want Lady Redbeard to be naked for 30 pages of a comic and not feel bad about it, then I'm just going to do that and not care. Right. So if you want to just go someplace else, because obviously the world is stressful enough, like right. Just have some fun. Like, and then the idea of not being chastised for your fun seems to be a big thing now, because everyone's always like, oh, watch everything you're saying, watch everything you're doing. This is offending me. That's offending someone else. And just to do something and say, well, you know what, here's a throwback to when people just didn't give a shit. So it's not offending or hurting anyone. It's just you have a sensibility to say, why should my comic character be naked for 30 pages while they're doing the whole storyline? And I'm like, I just want to have fun with it.
Yeah, you shouldn't be apologetic if you see the story that way. And I look, we have a book called Sex and Violence. I'm sorry, but we have to deliver these two things to them if they're going to buy this book. It's either going to be some sex or there's going to be some violence. I have no problem with it because right away we tell them it's for adults, right? So I mean, there's no guesswork, you know. Spicy pulp tales. It's like kind of telling you exactly what it is. It's not bland, you know. There's nothing bland about it. You should expect to have adult material, and I think on Kickstarter, I think that stuff really does well. I mean, you know, and Justin and I we've never been character people. Like we would create a character, although we've done it. Yeah. We always liked the genre it was in better than the single. You know, like I don't create a lot of Painkiller Janes. Like I tend to do a book called Denver, which is about, you know, a place and a town. You know, it's and superhero books. I'm not a big superhero fan. You know, I'm just not. You know,
it's not fun anymore. I want it to be fun.
If I do it, it's going to be because it's weird. There's something about it that's unsettling, or, you know, a guy getting powers, and we read about 10,000 of those comics, you know.
Yeah, I'm with you, because like I've had a superhero story, but my first two Kickstarters have not been superhero story related. Like, you know, I've got a story that I love to tell, but I just, you know, my first book was a sci-fi book because that was me. You know, I grew up with Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, the Black Hole, like all that stuff. And I wanted to tell a story in space that was, you know, not superhero related. And it's a tough sell because, you know, a lot of people are just like, they'll look at that and be like, well, you know, I don't know. There's no capes. There's no, you know, that type of stuff.
Naked men. They like naked men. You should add some of those into the book.
It's so funny, like trying to get people. Sometimes people won't do that, won't embrace it. And then some artists will be like, do you mind if I draw a big schlong on this character? I'm like, yeah, just go for it. Like, I don't care. Like, there's got to be a space for everyone.
I like if it's hanging in silhouette in the foreground and you have to look past the schlong to the middle of the room. Like, nobody really gets creative with you know, like the idea of, you know, it's like it's hanging right there.
Branko drew this thing. He sent me an email saying, do you mind if I draw this? And I was like, oh, it's fine. So like the character's like down on the ground and there's this giant thing in front of her, and she's just like, because she's lesbian, she's like, no. And it's just so funny of a moment to me that I'm like, of course you have to draw that in there because she's fighting the horrors of hell, and on top of it, there's this thing that she has no interest in whatsoever, so it just compounds her hatred in the situation. And I'm like, thank you for adding that to the story.
Yeah, I have a story in the Sex and Violence where I just told the artist, I said, you know, there's three people in the room kind of going at it, and he kind of like the guy we're following looks past them, you know, like that's not. And he went so detailed what these three people are doing. Like, it is like, you know, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I opened up Pandora's box for that. And it's not even important. Like, it's like, you know, it's just that people are having sex in that room. But it was like an opportunity for the artist to say, I can now draw a girl going down on another girl while a guy is doing this. And I'm like,
I love that. I love them. Like somebody has a moment where they're like, I finally get to do something that I've always wanted to do.
right.
And it would never happen except for Kickstarter.
No, I was laughing because I'm like, it's very distracting from the story. So I'm going to be really clever with the balloon. You know, I'm going to try to figure out, you know, where the eye is going to go and have the balloon lead up from there. But the joy
my first instinct is to derail myself and just make fun of myself from at that point.
Well, I think the fun of this, again, the fun of this job is you write it and then you get something else back and you're like, wow, I never even thought of that. Or that's completely wrong, but I'm not going to change a thing. I'm just going to write around it, you know?
I've been doing a lot of that, just writing, just saying this happens on this page and then going in and lettering it and just writing the dialogue completely differently than I would normally do it.
Yeah, they call that Marvel style, like classic Marvel style.
And with
I've only drawn a couple of Marvel comics. You know, I drew like Namor in a couple of books. And I remember getting a Bob Harris script, and it was one long paragraph. And he said, in this issue, Namor does this, and he goes, and I'm like, do I get script? And he goes, no, you just break it down to 22 pages, and then I'll write it afterwards. And I was like, that's, to me, I was like, well, how do I know when there's drama like right here? Like,
I can see that, how that would drive you nuts.
Yeah, and I was like, so I drew like 22 pages of pretty pictures, you know, and I had some, you know, I just added some stuff, and he wrote it around it, and I thought that's got to be kind of fun in a way. I mean, remember when we got that Jonah Hex with Bolin did the cover with the nun?
Yeah, that was Luke Ross issue.
What's that?
That was Luke Ross issue with that was issue 6, I think.
Right, but Bolin drew the cover first.
Yes.
And then we had to match the story. Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that was fun. I don't dislike it. It's better than when we gave full scripts and
they ignore it.
Artists ignored the whole thing, and you were like, I don't know, we have to go back in and rewrite this. It doesn't work. And I was like, oh, I hate these issues.
I did a Batman story not too long ago, and the artist didn't want, hey, Patrick something.
Yes, we brought Patrick in to chime in.
Yeah, I did a Batman story, and the artist was like, drew something different, and I was we kind of locked heads a little bit because I was like, it doesn't work if we stick it like, I had to just rewrite it because the editor actually stuck up for the penciler, not for me.
Right.
And I was like, okay, that's probably the last time I worked with that person too. You know, the editor as well. What's up, Patrick?
Hey, sorry about that.
It's all right.
How you guys doing?
Good.
And how you doing?
Not too
We
bad,
brought
not
you
too
in because we kind of been talking about the Kickstarter process.
We're talking about you.
Yes, we're talking about
that's
you.
fine. That's typical. So,
But because we've got like 3 levels of Kickstarter here, like, you know, I'm the beginner. Justin is the next step up. Jimmy is the guy that can get, you know, mainstream artists from the industry. So
gotcha.
We've just been talking about, you know, the whole process of, you know, what it deals with having to ship, you know, how to deal with all this other stuff on the Kickstarter side.
I gotta trim my eyebrows. I look like I have 2 caterpillars.
I know, it's horrible. It's horrible.
But it just, you know, it just feels like Kickstarter is the way to go now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what you're doing and, you know, how people are, you know, what kind of their goal is. They got to be realistic, obviously, when they're, you know, doing the campaigns to make sure that, you know, you have an audience that you're going to, you know, you're going to get your backing of, you're going to have your friends and family always that are going to back your stuff. But, you know, if they don't back it, that's an eye opener.
So as a fan,
you're out.
Yeah.
Let's say from like a fan aspect, do you find that you're getting more enjoyable stuff from Kickstarter or from the big 2?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I don't really buy a lot from Marvel and DC. I mean, I do buy them for sure, obviously, but you know, I think with Kickstarters, a lot of it is about the experience, right? So when you're buying, you know, you're supporting creators, which is great. You know, that's a direct. I know the money that's, you know, I'm pledging and putting towards a campaign. You know, obviously, Kickstarter is going to get their cut, Amazon's going to get their cut, right? But I know if I'm backing a project, it's going to that creator, you know. So, you know, when you support them, you're supporting the creator directly, not a publisher per se. But you know, it's about that interaction with that creator too. So, you know, how they're interacting with their fans and all that stuff is, you know, to me the key. So.
What happened to Justin? He went to the bathroom.
You went to get another beer, I'm sure.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at his shelf back there. I can see
Come back up here.
I think that's a Darwin page back there too.
Yeah, that's a
You showed us, yeah.
cover. That's a cover. He also has the I see the Monolith book. I see Jonah Hex in the background. Let's see what else he's got. He got a fan. Biggest fan behind him.
Jimmy's got better eyes than me, man. I can't.
It's small, but it's I see Green Lantern. Some of those Darwin figures, I think. Anyway. So Patrick, it's dark in your house. So it looks dark.
Yeah, I don't like the lighting in it, so I don't know. Okay. I could pop the light on, but then it'll probably blind everybody. So
yeah, it looks weird.
Yeah, hang on.
So Jimmy, shows for you 2021 or 2022? Will you try in 2020, you think, or no?
I have nothing planned.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, it depends what happens with the world. I'll do it. You know, we did a signing at CGC, which was fun.
Sure.
But I won't do cons until they figure it out. I mean, I don't want to get people sick. I don't want sick people near me.
Sure.
If we all start getting shots in 6 months, then you know the world will be different, and we'll see what happens. I think there's some damage done. I think like a San Diego Comic-Con will be half the size now. I think some damage has been done. I think like a lot of it's not going to bounce back to what it was. It's going to be some new thing.
Yeah, and that's my thinking is like they're going to have to start small again. They're going to have to go back to the
like
hotels or whatever and kind of work your way back up.
Yeah, I like smaller cons because you can talk to people and you can just get up and walk out, and you know, there's a certain charm to.
Plus, the people that are there actually are there to see you or appreciate the medium, and not just there to grab buttons and posters.
Right.
Yeah, to buy a Hello Kitty dolls.
To meet some actor who's on a TV show, you know, forget it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Those guys are going to hurt a little bit. I think a lot of the actors are going to be rushing back to do the autographs, and they're going to see that people don't want to pay the money they used to pay. So, I think right before the virus, I think like everything was at its peak. People were getting top dollar, all this kind of stuff. And I think everything changed. I think when we go back to the convention thing, I think so much is going to change, except for the comic people. We're going to still pretty much be the same schlubs as always. But the cons are going to have to treat us a little better. There's some big cons that I'd like to see them go out of business too. I have a couple that I think like needed to be smacked up the side of the head because they kind of treat us crappy.
Sure.
Patrick knows that list of those, but then there's ones that are wonderful. You know, there's ones that we love, the shows we love. You know, I base on how much I love them by how well they treat us, and how well they treat Amanda is my gauge on if it's a good con or not. If they kind of dicky, then I'm like, we don't go back, we don't do it, right, Patrick? We don't go back.
Oh, yeah. And usually it's funny because like the smaller mid-sized cons, they're the ones that kind of ignore, I don't want to say ignore the celebrities, but they don't focus on the celebrities. They focus on the comic creators. And even if they don't have, you know, big budgets and stuff like that, they really put the money into, you know, let's make the comic creators feel welcome and feel the highlight, and they're the superstars of the convention. So they do a green room that's got real food other than just chips and bottled water, you know. And
yeah, I never want to eat another sweaty meat hero. You know, it's like a hero like they have in a box, and it's like the cold cuts are like sweaty.
Squishy. Yeah, squishy.
Like, it's squishy at that point.
You can get a piece of turkey and you can almost snap it like a rubber band, you know. Yeah, I don't like that. It doesn't take a lot to spoil us. And, you know, that's the one thing I realized. It doesn't take a lot, but you'd be surprised how some shows would do less than they do nothing.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, why would I come back here? Except for the people. I love the people, but It's not their fault, you know.
So it's funny because like my hometown show, the Ithacon, it's like I think they're technically the longest running convention fan show. And they used to get like Frank Miller. They used to get, I mean, like I think 2 years ago they had Wheezy and Walt, but they bring in, they don't have a lot of money. They usually try to go to the city to get a venue, but they brought in like all these people because Ithaca is semi close to the city, and they used to have like this, you know, be able to funnel people down from the city. And it's just been like, to me, like I didn't realize as a kid like what a good show it was until like a couple years ago I went as a guest. And you know, I mean, like Tom Payer goes there now because he's in Syracuse, but like, you know, 2 years ago they had Walt and Wheezy. They've had Roger Stern's a regular because he lives there.
Did you have Justin?
No, here's the thing though. I begged Justin to come. And he's like, well, you know, that's too far. I can't drive that.
That sounds like,
and ask him. I begged him to come, so ask him.
You didn't say the magic.
If he ever wants to go, I will tell them to invite him because he will go. But you don't do shows though, right, Justin?
He does.
I didn't do shows when I worked for corporate comics, but I realized there's a different dynamic of doing it for myself. Like I feel more invested in it. It's not that I don't love the fans, and I don't love I don't like the. It's hard for me because I am antisocial and I have social anxiety issues. So like I get really stressed out when there's too many people around me. I have sensory issues where I get exhausted if I'm in a con for like an hour. I like need to go find some place to decompress and it's just stupid stuff that I guess is just. I don't even know how to explain it. It sounds weak as hell, but it just happens.
No, it's valid. 100% valid. So.
Everybody's built different. Everybody's built different. Everybody's built different. You can throw
Justin had to admit that I begged him to come, right? How many times did I hound you to come to Ithacon?
Me?
Come on.
I know. Here's the story. I went to the Jersey Con, which I had to drive, and there was so much traffic. It took me like 2 hours more to get there.
Oh.
I go to the thing. I do 2 hours in the show. I go back to my hotel room, and I just veg out on Gold Rush for like 3 hours. And I'm like, this is the greatest experience ever because I'm so exhausted.
You mean Gold Rush was the greatest experience.
And Justin just lost like 2,000 Kickstarter backers.
But the thing that I miss is like going on the roof of the Marriott with Garth and Frank and having like time with people that I never get to see that I'm like, I really like, I don't miss it as much until I'm there. And I'm like, why am I not having this experience more often?
Right.
You know, I really like being around these people, but I get into this social anxiety thing where I don't want to go do something, or I'm too concerned that I'm going to be overloaded on it. And I don't know what that is about me. And I've been working on it. It's not always like that. And I want to do more shows because now I'm more invested. Like I have stuff to do. Instead, I would sit there and be like, "Hi, I write comics. No, I'm not going to draw you a Batman." But now I like have my actual comics that I can not just like I'm going to sell you stuff you can buy your LCS, but I don't know. It's different for me. And like if I had art, I could sell and everything else. So that to me is why I want to get to go now. I want to go see what I could do as my own person as opposed to someone who works for McDonald's. You know what I mean?
And when we used to do the shows, look, I'm not the easiest. Patrick knows this. I'm not the easiest person to deal with all the time because I focus. I can I don't I focus on everything.
Right.
I'm like constantly. I can handle 40 people at once. I can go in front of a panel the next minute and everything. And I think it's you know, there is a point where my brain does say, okay, I'm done. You know, I get very punchy at the end of the day with people.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I get punchy. I'm like, get out of here. Like somebody could me up. I'm like, get out of here. But I definitely, you know, Justin, I knew like, you know, yeah, you not a big fan of the cons, but you're a big fan of us having a couple of drinks later, seeing Darwin, seeing the guys at the bar is a little easier. But it is a lot to take on because, you know, again, first impressions with people and, you know, they have their expectations and we're not public figures really. We're just comic people and
I don't take myself seriously. So like people saying, "Oh my God, you're the," and I always feel uncomfortable because I'm like, "Am I really?" Like I just do a thing.
Yeah, I had to learn to say thank you.
Yeah.
Like people would flatter me, and I'd be like, "Well, it's all right." I mean, I right away my brain would do that, and I had to learn over the years to go, "Thank you. That's very nice of you to say." I have to say that because it's like, yeah, I'm not used to. I'm not comfortable with the flattery. I start laughing, and I feel like, well, that's I don't deserve that. But I learned that now it's easy to just say thank you, and then I change the conversation. I go, "So where'd you get that shirt?" or something.
Yep.
I'm not comfortable with the adoration. The people telling me, and it's nice because like sometimes people say, "Hey, when I read this book, I was going through that." I love those conversations.
Yeah, those are great.
Or they bring you gifts. I mean, Amanda, one time we wrote she likes dark chocolate, and people bring her chocolate, and it's very sweet. And but it is stressful, and you do have to do it for 3 days in a row. And that's what I always say: the cons don't realize how much work this is. Stressful work. It's easier to stay at home and hide. But I don't think I don't think things are gonna go back to what they were before. I think it's gonna be a little bit of a different vibe to cons. I think the fans are gonna be a lot more excited to see the comic people now than they have been.
I hope they're more excited to wash their hands as well.
Yeah, hand washing.
Justin's going to be there with the hand sanitizer. Like, could you do this before you shake my hand?
Well, I also think that the bigger companies are investing a lot of time and money, not pushing the creators, but pushing the characters. And so we're in a generation now where the creator has to go out and make a name for themselves.
I think we're going back to the point where the name on the book is like irrelevant. Like when they didn't even put names on the book.
Right.
I think that they're just going to outsource everything. They're going to lowball everything. Page rates are not even going to be anywhere. Like after the 90s bubble burst and people went down, it's going to be a lot worse than that because they have no value in the publishing. Their value is all in the merchandising and film and TV stuff. So whatever you can layer, like any monkey, like the attitude of any monkey can come up with a great idea. Anybody can create. Ghostwriter is permeating everything for a while now. That's why you see so many people doing knockoff superhero things. And it's going to go back to that thing where everyone made sword and sandal, everyone made gangster movies, everyone made kung fu movies, monster movies. It's just, I feel like for a long time now that's where they're going to go with it, no matter how diverse it is.
Right. So we have to spend extra time getting our names out there, and we brand ourselves now. Now we have to brand ourselves, and more than ever. I've been doing that my whole career anyway. I've been doing that forever. It's always been important for even Marvel Knights. We had to brand ourselves like these are the two guys that are doing these comics, even though it's 15 other people, but we're the faces of that, and it has a lot to do with that. But I think we're going to lose a little bit of our audience for the mainstream stuff, and I think it's up to us with the self-publishing and Kickstarters to not only keep our audience, but Patrick, explain what you did 2 weeks ago to see what the audience wanted. Explain that.
2 weeks ago. Oh my God, what did I do 2 weeks ago?
You sent out a thing for people to fill out about.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. I was like, good Lord, you got to narrow that down. I do too many things in 2 weeks ago.
That person you killed and buried in your yard? No, that's
So yeah, like 2 weeks ago, we did a newsletter and we put out I wanted to ask everybody that was for Paper Films, we have a newsletter. So if you go to the website, you can sign up and you get an email that we blast out every couple weeks or whatever. And what I wanted to do was throw a survey out to people and kind of find out it's are we doing the books that you kind of like? Is it a genre you like? Are we selling things that you want? Like, what kind of things are we doing right? And what type of things are we potentially doing wrong, right? Like, that's a good way to get the fans to give you exactly what they're feeling. So, am I on the wrong track? Do I need to pivot? Do I need to, do I need to focus more on this when I should have been doing that, right? And it was like 25, almost about 3,000 people we blasted out. And we, typical responses, from a marketing perspective, usually 10% is usually considered a success, right? So, I mean, we got about 25% that came back and gave us feedback, which is great. but it was kind of that, experience that when I was reviewing it and kind of getting into the details, because that's the anal retentive part of the stuff that I enjoy. I'm doing pivot tabs and, taking all the data and grinding it down and seeing, people want, this type of book and this type of product, and they like signatures and they like, certain things signed, but they definitely want you, or they want creators to do their own stuff. Like the mainstream stuff is great, but I think when you're getting to the level of like Jimmy and Justin and what they're doing, they're doing the right thing. They're treating their stuff as their brand, right? Like the comic and the work that you're doing, you're supporting the creator and the brand, right? So that survey stuff that we were doing was great because it backed up exactly that. And I think what Justin was saying is a good point. Like conventions now are going to move to where, maybe this is just my perception too. Like Justin, when you were doing it before, I can see that you were like, I got to be on for 3 hours in a convention, but I'm plugging my Batman work and all that, the Monolith and Jonah Hex, which is good stuff. And it's not like you guys just cash the check on that, right?
I hated it. It's just that it's different now.
Yeah, exactly. So you're selling your project and your property and your passion. So it's a little bit easier because it's a little bit more heart. So you can okay, it may be a soul sucking experience for 3 hours, but it's not as bad as it was doing it for the corporate,
Well, it's definitely getting feedback for someone saying you're doing a great job at something that I'm going to love someone else doing 6 months from now.
Right.
The same way and the same enthusiasm, as opposed to it being like, this is something unique to you that they appreciate. And I'm not even the kind of person that needs that. I really don't need someone to tell, because I'm blindly stupid. I'm just going to keep doing this thing, whether it succeeds or fails miserably, because I have to do it. But it is nice. And that's what I love about Kickstarter, is that I constantly connect with Kickstarter people in a way that's different from anything else I've ever done. Like, I don't feel like I'm just some guy who's standing in for something at the moment. I feel like I agonize when someone doesn't get their package, or if the package shows up destroyed. I'm like, that to me is not just, oh, too bad, buddy, a defective thing. I'm Amazon. It can just be thrown under the carpet. I have so much, I have billions of dollars and people to not worry about that.
Yeah.
Me, I'm like, oh shit, that's going to affect me. That someone's got a negative impression of me, and they're going to tell 2 or 3 other people, and that's 2 or 3 other people that could have bought the book and enjoyed it, but because this happened, like, to me, that's a completely different investment than handing a script to an editor and going, I hope this turns out okay.
Yeah, and it's funny too, like you say that, like, because like Kickstarter has no feedback, right? Like they don't have a rating or a feedback.
On Instacart, I know how I'm doing.
Exactly.
People are like, and it sounds so stupid. I'm like, oh, I'm shopping for groceries for people, but I'm like, I want to make sure I get them everything. If I shop for someone and their kid they don't have the baby food that they want and the flavor they want, knowing how picky my kid is, like, that bothers me.
Exactly.
It's the same thing with the comics, is that, like, I feel an emotional connection to it. And it seems, I feel like part of me is like, oh, it's ludicrous. They didn't get peas, they got carrots. But to me, knowing how important that is, especially now when everyone is like so stressed out.
Yeah.
That's what I like about doing Kickstarters. That's what I like about having fans and being able to sell to people directly, and not having to worry about if they had a bad experience at the local comic shop, or if Diamond can't distribute the books or doesn't want to send back 10 more copies for people so they can get more copies of it. To me, it's just like, I'm here for you, you're here for me, let's just do this together. And I hope I can keep expanding that audience so that I can pay people more money. That's the other thing too, is paying people in Kickstarter. I'm paying artists that no one else is hiring. And as Jimmy said multiple times, these are not hack artists. These are people who deserve to be doing mainstream work. And to me, that I always feel good about doing that. I feel good about hiring people from all kinds of backgrounds, from all over the planet, men, women, gay, whatever. All I care about is how good the work is. And that makes me happy. So sorry for my rant about.
No, I think that's great because I mean you're exactly right. Like you do fret like every package, like email you get, it's just like a damaged book. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to respond to him tonight and say I'll get you a label and I'll return it and I'll make sure you get a brand new one and we'll take care of it. And if it's far away, even we sometimes we'll just say, I'm sorry, it's damaged. Why don't you just give it to a friend and see if they like it?
Right.
Like some things we can't do that. Obviously, that's the way it works. But sometimes it's planting that seed of just, okay, if they take that damaged copy and give it to somebody else, I'm hoping that person comes back and it feels happy that, oh, you took care of them. So let's see if we can get them, that next person.
So something kind of odd to me, like I figured I knew a lot about Jimmy, but I was trying to do some research today on Justin and Jimmy, and I didn't realize, like, I guess, so Jimmy, you explained this, the internet, whatever page I looked at was saying that your event comics was basically, you took on 4 titles from Marvel Knights.
No.
What do event comics?
No, it was we were doing event comics, and they hired us to take on 4 books and create the label Marvel Knights and put the books under the label. So that's how that worked. And then we abandoned event comics for a while, which was a major mistake. Like if I can go back in time, I would have put all the event characters in all those Marvel Knights books, and then but I definitely had a different, like Joe and I had different ideas of what we wanted to do. And, it worked out for a little bit, but it was a packaging deal basically. And we got paid a lot of money and we met Justin. Justin came out of it. We gave birth to Justin Gray. There you go.
You started right out of the gate too, Justin, right? You were there from this pretty much start.
97. It was that I started using the internet in a stalkery way that like is totally unacceptable now, and I started stalking Joe and Jimmy, and then they invited me to go down to the city to meet with them, and after that I got invited to the Blade after party in Chicago. After I was supposed to work, it was a Friday. I was supposed to work in a restaurant all weekend, and I said I'm not working this weekend, which is essentially like quitting your job. And I jumped in my truck and I drove to Chicago, found a hotel room, broke out a phone book. We talked about this earlier. And I called every hotel until I got the hotel they were staying in. And I think I got a hold of Joe first. And Joe said, come to the Blade after party in downtown Chicago. And I drove my little crusty 1985 Dodge Prospector pickup truck down there. And I never got to meet Tracy Lords, which I don't know if she was at that party or not, but
was I at that party?
Yeah, you were there. The only actor from the movie was the older guy that was there.
Oh, really? Okay. I've met Wesley Snipes 3 times.
Yeah.
Since that,
I remember. I think he wanted to be Black Panther at one point.
Yeah, that was at John Singleton's after party. I met him there. And then the week or 2 before he did time for the tax evasion stuff, I was at a dinner with him and Anton Fuqua and another person. Another person invited me, and we had dinner at in San Diego together, and we talked about that. And then a year and a half ago, Amanda and I got invited to Monte Carlo. This thing called Magic, which was like a not a comic convention. It was sort of like they took people from different professions and brought us out, and then we would talk to like a group of couple of thousand people in an auditorium.
Looks a French thing to do.
Yeah, and Wesley, and it was free. It was free to everybody. And Wesley was there, so I was having dinner with Wesley. I'm like, this is the 3rd time I've met you, and I don't, and now every once in a while he'll like he'll tweet me something that I have to like. It's like hieroglyphics. I have to figure out what he's trying to say. But talk about just a weird meeting a celebrity. So, but I don't even remember the Blade party. That's funny. I love that movie though. The first Blade was great.
Yeah, it was great.
You know.
Well, I was dancing with Nancy DeKeesian on the floor at the bottom of the club for a little bit, and then I don't remember the rest of it though.
Yeah, I worry sometimes that I don't remember a lot of. There was a lot of nights like that, though. You know, there was a lot of
roofie in the '90s. That's all.
Justin, that's not how you end a story. You know, like, oh, I forgot.
I was roofing myself with this thing to do.
That's all part of how he stalked you a little bit. That's how he got the job. So
I mean, you might not have been there. It might have just been Joe and Nancy at that point. I don't know.
I don't know either. I just remember you up at we were at Marble Nights, obviously, and then we both went after that and said, let's create some stuff for Wildstorm. And that was a great opportunity.
That was funny because you called me. I was sitting at the bar in a Fridays when I got the call, and you said, hey, Wildstorm wants us to do this thing. What do you think about doing this? And I was like, yes. Yes.
Yeah. And we every year I try to get the 21 Down property back from them every year. The guys there, the legal team, they always laugh at me. They're like, well, we'll put in your request and we'll turn it down again. But it did work out for Monolith. It did work for, it did work for.
I don't know why they're still holding on to that property so hard. I don't understand what they think they're going to do with nothing with it.
Yeah, I don't know. But
I would prefer to have Tallulah Black, but.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, it's never going to happen.
No, I'm no, I never say never. How about that? Never say never. You never know. I would love them to develop Tallulah at least into a film or a TV series. Talk about the easiest TV series to do, like a HBO. Tallulah Black. Who wouldn't watch that? But we'll have to die first, Justin. Then they'll stop.
I know. I don't know if they'll have movie theaters in heaven either. I don't know.
No, it'll be at home. It'll be at home. So you're going to heaven? Is that what you think?
It's paper cloud. It's paper cloud stuff, right?
It's just
movies in the cloud.
Yeah, I always think if like what is the afterlife? Because what is Darwin doing in the afterlife? That's what I always think. On his birthday, a toast to Darwin and his messy afterlife.
He's waiting for us.
That's right.
There you go.
A magnificent bastard.
I don't like the idea of a ghost Darwin. Like that there's a Darwin ghost walking around. I don't like that.
Why do you think he left something in every room in your house?
Well, that's creepy enough, but I'm just saying I don't want him to watch me in the shower and stuff. I
don't think that was his preference, but
you don't know. You don't know that for sure. You don't know.
He's not watching you. He's watching and judging you. That's a different story.
He can judge all he wants.
You missed a spot, Skipper. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So again, like we talked about this earlier, but like 10 years ago, I sent Jimmy this on the like an online interview that I was doing for In Genre website, which is gone now. But it's funny because like some of the stuff, I asked him about what he was working on, what he likes to do, and he was like, if this is what you want to do, go to school for it and get better at it. But let me see if I can pull it up really quick. But there was a thing like at the end where I asked him, like, where do you see yourself in, or where do you want to be in whatever? And it's kind of funny because he was like, he basically said, hey, I have hay fever right now, which I don't want, but, I want to be with Amanda. I want to be doing this type of stuff. And I think like he's spot on. I think he's where he wanted to be 10 years ago. But let me see if I can pull it up really quick. But it was just interesting to me to go back and read it and see, because again, like Jimmy has always been very, good about telling, for me personally, just like, hey, this is what you need to work on. This is, what you need to get better at. This is where, where you need to try to do this stuff if you really want to do this, this is where you need to be, type of thing. And I've always appreciated it. Like, when I met Jimmy, he had no idea who I was, gave me his email, said, send me what you're working on.
I know you.
No, you're absolutely right. And I've adopted so many of those elements of Jimmy in dealing with situations where I meet someone new, and I really want the best for them. So,
So we brought in Aaron Campbell from Albuquerque, New Mexico as well. Jimmy knows Aaron pretty well.
Yeah, hey, what's up, Jimmy? It's a long time.
How's it going, buddy?
Pretty good.
Where are you? Is that your studio?
Yeah, my tiny room, my tiny studio. I'm now that I'm off Hellblazer and I've got some time, I'm building a new studio on the back of our house.
Does it look like it looks like you're like 20 levels under the earth, like basement, like the top, you know, like a
in the closet at a high school.
Yeah, it basically is. It's a tiny 8-foot by like 12-foot room.
He evidently took
even
over Joe Biden's basement.
I like the evil plans on the board too. There's like some writing on the board.
Yeah.
with like some blueprints leaning against it. It's very mysterious. I like
it. You don't get to see all my geekiness though here in front of me. That surrounds me.
See, Justin, you got like a wall of stuff. You and Patrick have, well, also, you know, our host, but Justin's got some stuff up there. We were looking. Besides your artwork, I can see the monolith, I can see the Jonah Hex book, and you got some shelf porn.
Yeah.
Right? Comic book shelf porn. Patrick's got a lot of it.
A lot of dudes in tight outfits.
Yeah, all my shelf porn here is like in front of me. You can't see it. I've got an extensive collection of D&D products. And
really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when it oh look, what's his name? Her name?
It's Kada.
Kada.
Queen of the house.
We watched it. Amanda and I watched the video last night of this guy in Canada. Tell me if anybody else has seen this. And I
don't watch anything from Canada.
He feeds raccoons, and he feeds them like 200 hot dogs. And he's got 25 raccoons. He goes outside and feeds like 200 hot dogs to these 25 raccoons that are the size of beach balls with little heads and little hands. They're so fat. You got to find this thing on YouTube. It's the most fascinating video you've ever seen. And he talks to all of them, and they all have names, and it's ridiculous and mesmerizing. And he just keeps feeding them, though, like hundreds of hot dogs, and then he throws out Oreos at them, and they just keep eating and eating. I'm ruining it, but wait till you see it. You've never seen anything like this.
So we kind of talked about, and Aaron, you could probably be a speaker to this. We kind of talked about, when your property gets picked up by Lionsgate or whoever, how that process works, and that you're not getting $1 million up front, that you're getting X amount of $1,000 for them to maybe kind of work your project in.
You get your heart broken a lot.
Yeah. I mean, the option for Infidel just got renewed like 3 weeks ago. It was on a force majeure since COVID started because our option was supposed to be renewed end of April, and COVID happened and Hollywood basically paused all options.
Yeah.
So we've just been in a holding pattern, like keeping our fingers crossed, and then we found out maybe 2 months ago that they had hired a second round team of writers, at which point we were like, woohoo, wait a second. You're doing stuff. That means money, money time. So we got them, they were already planning to end the force majeure. They keep telling us that Infidel is one of the top priorities at TriStar, or Sony TriStar. So we had already been told it was going to be renewed. They were like, and I'm sure they told this to every person who was asking for their options to be renewed. But they told us, well, if we renew yours right now, it'll show special treatment. We can't do that. So we got just hold on, like.
What? Wait, is it like, did that come with a shovel?
Yeah. So I don't know, like, we're pretty confident at this point. They've invested a considerable amount for a comic book
In there.
compared to like what I've heard from other people. I mean, Infidel was optioned for film, not TV, and it's a completely different scale in terms of what you're optioned.
Yeah, these days you want TV.
Well, now, but when it first started, we wanted film because the TV money was much lower on options.
Right.
So we kind of got in right under the gun. So I think we were good on that. Like now, if we were optioning it for Netflix, we would have probably gotten a lot less.
Well, I'll give you a fine example of Hollywood. Justin and Patrick know this. We optioned Ash with DreamWorks '96.
Right back.
They paid us $900,000 for the option.
Shit. And nothing's ever happened.
Nope.
I mean, man.
Well, let me correct this. That doesn't mean we got that. Okay.
Yeah.
It means that there was a producer attached. There was lawyers. There was a CAA. But we Justin and I we had Monolith at Lionsgate, and they renewed the option, and we had read the first screenplay. They had a new screenplay done, and then they got all the actors and the director, and then they bailed on it. 2.5-year process. They had screenplay, they had the actors lined up, they had the shooting dates, and then they said, "Nah, we're not doing it."
Man.
And we got the option back. So we've been through that a lot. So I always say take it all with a grain of salt.
Oh yeah.
And my philosophy on all this is they're doing what they do. Your brain's got to keep creating and moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not thinking about you or what you're doing, or
We never even Pornsack and I never even considered the notion that we'd be involved in any way, shape, or form once we signed that contract.
Right.
We get a
VP executive.
No, we don't even get like executive. We just get a credit. We just get a byline as creators, and then we get a trip to the premiere if it happens for me and a guest. No set visits, nothing.
Really?
The actual production company that's doing it is Sugar 23, and
I know that
they're very closed in terms of their creative process. They take something and then they want to do what they want to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you're not familiar, they did True Detective and Maniac and the OA. They won an Oscar for Spotlight, that Mark Ruffalo film.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we didn't expect to have anything. Even when Michael Sugar told us oh yeah, we're gonna make sure that you stay involved every step of the way. We're like, yeah, sure, right.
Yeah, the rule of thumb: if it's not on the paper, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, no,
and
that's fine with me. I don't have time to deal with that.
We had Random Acts of Violence come out this summer, and it's on Shudder. And true to their word, I mean, they gave us Justin and I executive producer credits.
Oh, they were great. They were great. And
created by credits, but it didn't premiere. It was showed in a drive-in in Florida if you wanted to go to the drive-in. But during COVID, you don't have really much choice. But we never had any expectations. We were just happy that Jay was excited to make it, and he made it, and it exists. But as far as being a lucrative thing, Justin and I probably spent that money in a month. There's not a lot of money there.
In the 10 years it took to make it happen, yes.
Yes, it was great to see it happen. We got a credit out of it. And actually, I flew myself to the set because I figured Amanda and I would make a little trip out of it. I went up to Toronto and hung out for a couple of days there. And that was fun, to see severed heads on the street and stuff like that. That was kind of fun. But, I always have low expectations with this stuff. I think the comics are realistic. I think the film stuff is like they look at us like we're the monkeys that created something, and yeah, here's your money, guys.
Yeah.
Let us do the adult stuff. You guys stay over there. We're making films, you know. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't.
I think Barton Fink, like every time that happens, I'm like, it's Barton Fink. It's been going on forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
I mean, I think a more organized person with more ambition and maybe a rich uncle, I would have been making films myself at some point. But you know, just what she said. I don't know who said that. But, you know, it's a whole different thing. But we're just happy to be involved, right, Aaron?
Yeah.
So we were talking about Kickstarters, and Aaron, you've never done one, right?
No, that's a mystery to me. I still don't understand it. And it seems like so much extra work. Like you know how in comics there's like all these different people that do all these different jobs, and all you have to do is create the art and you just turn it in, and then somebody like, no, just imagine you do everything.
That's what I love about it, to be honest with you. Like the other part made me more nervous because I had no control over it.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Or if you're like Jimmy, you hire, get someone like Patrick to do all the slave labor for you. That you could.
I do some of the slave labor. I do it sometimes.
He packs at directions, basically. He's the monkey. That's the one area he's the monkey in it, and we can just tell him what to do.
We both have to handle the talent, and that's a lot. I think
I'm going to act up the next time we do something together. I'm going to act up, destroy a hotel room.
Go for it.
Is it something you would consider, Aaron? You think to do with like a Kickstarter or no?
I mean, maybe it would. I'd have to have the right partners. Sure. Like I wouldn't go into it with somebody who's also never done it. Like if the entire creative team was completely new to it, then I would say it's a bad idea because, like, I wouldn't even know how to begin to find a printer. I don't even know who prints these books.
I spent like 2 years looking into printers, so I get it.
I think it's hit or miss. Just because I've done it twice now, but for me it's been hit or miss. It's kind of you try the first one, and for me it was based on cost. It was based on how quickly could they turn it around. But there was there was Kablam in Florida, and a lot of people are like, you should use Kablam. You should use Kablam. They're the greatest. But then there was Ready Comics in Arizona, which is closer for me. So it's kind of that, what do I pick? Do I pick what's closer for me? I'm going to get the product sooner, or do I go with, this one that a lot of people have recommended?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, Kablam is an old buddy of mine, Thomas Flormonte. That was his company. He used to help me with backgrounds when I was inking way back when in the 90s. Great guy. And they're great. We found a printer in Sarasota in Florida that's great. We were dealing mostly with, we tried out a lot, right, Patrick? We tried out a couple of different printers.
You have to.
Exactly.
I'm really, really picky about paper quality and all that kind of stuff. And
shocking.
What's that?
I'm shocked. It's shocking.
So there's definitely some problems with me once in a while. I'm like, this isn't the right stock, and and so
the fact that you recognize it is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. I am. I want the book to feel like if I'm gonna charge $30, I want it to feel like $30.
Right.
So spot varnishing is very important, and how it's bound is important, and the paperweight.
40.
We just got.
That's good.
We just got our German editions of Infidel, and they're fucking beautiful.
They're made in China, by the way.
Yeah, like here's the original image.
Right.
Is half the size.
Right.
It's less than half the thickness.
Yeah.
And the paper is just incredible. It's like 100 weight, 100 pound almost.
Nice.
It's incredible.
Right.
And man, like that's the thing. Like if I were going to do a Kickstarter, that would be the number one benefit, is the ability to dictate the final product. exactly how you want it, and it's not just, well, this is what we do. That's the paper we use, and like you get a couple choices at Image, and that's it. Like you could do this paper or that paper.
Yeah,
not much difference.
We're tactile people. We want to
Yeah.
we want the better stock, and we want.
And it's funny because like you're saying that, I guarantee Justin and myself are both looking at that and that's great, but oh my God, how are we going to ship that? How are we going to pack it up and protect it? What's that going to cost
I mean,
for
are we to
postage?
send that to Germany when it costs $2?
Exactly. We're backing into how all the minute details of it when it's just, like Jimmy's going at it like, oh, let's do the, 100-pound paperweight and let's do the spot varnish and do this. Well, and exactly. And the whole time I'm just like, oh God, that's going to need silver backing boards and bags. But I think to your point, Mark, like the printing stuff, we were doing what rink? They were out of Chicago. Then we went to a place in Canada. Then it was down to the one in, Sarasota, Cape Coral area. All of it they were good printers. They were nice, but then you're backing into, okay, how much is it going to be to ship all those books to one place? And then, you farm it out. Well, then you got to deal with Canada. Canada's a great printer. They were great. Yeah. But, to ship 3,000 books down to Florida from Canada, you're talking thousands of dollars at that point. So, your budget gets chewed up right away when you're dealing with that kind of stuff.
And Aaron, your German book was probably printed in China.
Probably, yeah.
So. And with China, you have to wait 3 months.
3+ months.
Yeah.
3+ months to get a book.
It's worse than COVID.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. It's worse with the COVID. So
yeah.
I mean, their margins are great. I mean, they print very cheap for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
But I think, like Justin was saying, you get that anxiety of just, okay, the campaign's done. I've got it to the printer. I got to get this back to the person as fast as I can because they plunk down their money for it. I want to make sure that they're getting it and experiencing it as quick as possible,
Right. Well, when I did Arthur Blackfrost, I priced everything out and then they increased the postage.
Yeah.
So it ate into every single PPU, added $3 to it. And I didn't cover for that. So I'm like, took a huge loss just to get this book out there. And
yeah,
that's the frustration of it. That's what a lot of people don't want to deal with is the moving variables of trying to do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which everything that you've been saying just sounds like a complete fucking nightmare to me.
You'll never see a Kickstarter from Aaron. So
what's that?
You'll never see a Kickstarter from Aaron. So
Aaron, what are you doing now? Aaron, what are you doing right now?
Oh, so I'm taking a little bit of time to myself. And I'm working on pitches with Cy and Tim Seeley.
Oh, okay.
So I'm working on a co-writer pitch with Tim, where I'll just do covers, and then two different pitches with Cy, all mainly for Image at this point. And then we're also still waiting to hear back on a potential Suicide Squad book for Black Label. But of course, everything is chaos at DC right now, so it's we're kind of like who knows what's going to happen with that at this point. So, and we're kind of trying to not breathe down Chris Conroy's, our editor's, neck too much.
That's my job.
Yeah, because we know he's had to pick up basically. I think his book load has probably doubled at this point.
Yeah.
So we're given some space, and I'm fine with that because I worked myself to the bone on Hellblazer. Basically, this entire year, I never had a day.
Right.
And the last issue of Hellblazer, which will be out either next week or maybe the week after next, it's 38 pages. So that last issue is.
That's Chris's favorite book. That's Chris's favorite book.
Yeah, it's my favorite book too, and I really poured everything I had into it. It's sort of my little Arkham Asylum. So yeah, that last one, I'm really excited for when it comes out, but it's going to be sad. But
Did we meet in Texas?
No, I haven't done any shows in Texas.
Where'd I meet you? Because I'm trying to think where.
So we've hung out. So we've hung out in San Diego,
Right.
and New York,
Ace, right? You guys were, it was an Ace, right? Remember the last Ace, Aaron?
Oh yeah,
Jimmy-
there was
Jimmy
it was
had a
Ace
kid the last
also,
Ace.
right? Yeah, right here.
Right. That's what I. That's
2
what I-
years ago, like 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I think Ace was the last Ace was 2017. I
Right.
know because I was just audited by the state of New Mexico.
really?
Yeah. and Ace, I was going through my records, and yeah, that was the last Ace because I had to account for in-state and out-of-state income. So that was fun. But we just got the word today that we're free and clear, no charges. We're closing the case.
So you got away with it, is what you're saying?
I did actually.
Don't say anything.
Did you pay more than
Scot-free.
700? Did you pay more than $750?
Oh, don't even get
I owe my accountant $400, so I call that a win.
That's a steal.
So I remember the last Ace because I helped Greg bring in talent, and I reached out to Jimmy to see if he had a man want to come. But I remember like Jimmy would walk the floor to look at the other artists that were out there and kind of see what they were doing, and I know like he would go out and talk to people.
Yeah. I like to. I like to see if anyone's really underappreciated, and if I can get them to work.
Yeah.
For the rec-
There was the Jimmy, were you on the 2-drink minimum panel where we drank and told stories? John McCrae was on it, and he basically occupied
Maybe
all
he
of
was.
the time.
Yeah. I hope I was on that one because I love McCrae. John's a good buddy.
I think so, because I remember you talking about how much you hated Doctor Strange as a character.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
That was definitely. I can't stand Doctor Strange. And it's funny because Marvel asked me to write him, and when Axel was there, and I was like, no. And he's like, what do you mean? No? I said, I can't stand the character. All he does is go, there's a problem, and he goes bibbly boo, and everything's solved, and I'm like, I don't
believe boo.
He asked the butler. What are you
bibbly boo.
kidding?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. Well, that was that became like the implausible aspect of the Avengers, where it's like, why can't Doctor Strange just fix all this?
Right.
Why is he doing half measures?
I'd rather have a character that can only make a good cocktail and have him fight supervillains. It's just Doctor Strange to me is like the weak way out every time. Again, bibbly boo and everything. Says it backwards. No, that's Santana, but. I did like Clea. Was it Clea or Clea or the
Clea was his assistant. Yeah.
Right. I like that character because that character was like way more flawed character. But yeah, not a big fan of Doctor Strange. I mean, look, we used to prank Marvel and call
I like
up.
when Michael Golden drew her.
What's that? Michael who?
Michael Golden.
Oh yeah, Michael. We used to prank Marvel and call up and ask for make an appointment with Doctor Strange. when we were kids, so it's stupid shit. We used to,
They still hired this guy. What's up with that?
It was in Manhattan. It was in the phone book. You can call up Marvel Comics and ask for Doctor Strange. Make an appointment with Doctor Strange. You can ask for the Hulk. Can I talk to Mr. Banner? And they'd be like the poor receptionist would have kids calling all day long doing this shit.
The little known fact about that, Mark, or about the fact that you said, at conventions when Jimmy gets up and wanders around, that happens every convention, and I always turn around and he'll be gone, like just disappeared. Amanda's sitting there because she'll talk to everybody for umpteenth time, especially if they got great shoes or a pet. That's the way it is. And she'll be like, oh, he's got Jimmy leg. He's gone. He's out wandering around. And it's very easy to figure out where he's at because there's a crowd that kind of like herds to talk to him and stuff. So it's just like, where's he at? And it's just like all you got to do is look down the rows of the con, and it's like, oh, he's down there somewhere. He'll be back at some point.
I like looking for artists, but I noticed that lately the cons, when I go, it's these people that only draw the head of a superhero or like do pinups. And I'm like, I used to look for sequential guys. I mean, that's how we found like Phil Noto and a whole bunch of guys, and but it's less and less sequential artists at the cons. There's more pinup people, or they only draw like a squirrel, and they do it really well. And they have like a table of or nachos. They can draw like realistic looking nachos and snack foods, and like there's so many weird things, but there's not like sequential artists, people drawing stories. There's not a lot of them.
Yeah,
it's like that on the pages too. Like if you go to ArtStation or if you go to like those type of places, a lot of people will just do pinups.
Don't say deviant art because that's the worst.
Yeah, deviant, yeah. Yep. And if you're trying to find somebody and you're like, hey, that looks amazing, but can you do panels? And they're kind of like, whatever, I'm not going to do panels. I can sell these prints for $30 or whatever. So
How about the guy with just heads though? You ever see that booth and it's just heads? Like 100 superhero heads.
And they're like they only actually drew half of the head.
Yeah, and it's like
they flip it.
It's like straight on. The ears are here. There's no variation. There's no shading. It's just Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America. Yeah. It's like they just put a different symbol on it. That guy does really well too.
Yeah.
And he's got the tower of like the 20 stories of prints behind.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I might do just boobs. Maybe just superhero boobs, and you put that on it and have it as a joke to see how that goes for like one con, like just a wall of boobs. It's our next Kickstarter, Patrick. Wall of boobs. Right there. Wall of boobs.
Wall of boobs.
And penises, too. We could do superhero penises. You have to guess the character by the shape of the penis, so by the look of the penis.
Well, I just recently signed on with Kato's to sell my original stuff, and they were saying it's like, yeah, a lot of people like this is their main source of income now, and they're like, you can make more off of commissions than you can doing interior work.
That's a lot. Like Steve Rude, guys like Steve Rude, guys like Lacey. All they do is commissions now. They don't do regular work,
Yeah, I don't know if I could handle that. Like I had one guy, and I've been trying to shake this guy for years now, and he just won't let go. It's like a pit bull, like a bumper of a fucking car. Like he reached out to me years and years ago, asked me to do like this very specific commission of like all these Marvel characters in a very specific situation, to the point where it felt like this was part of a story that he was writing, and I'm drawing a single spread of a page.
Yeah.
In this, or like a large like panel. And then he came back and asked me to do another one, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it again. And after that, I was like, I can't. And he's just will not stop asking me to keep doing more. And I'm like, and he showed me other commissions he's done, and I'm like, this guy is spending tens of thousands of dollars to basically create this comic book that he's written in his head, and he's having all of these like top name illustrators and comic creators draw the individual panels that he's going to at some point compile into his final issue.
I kind of like it. I think that's aggressive.
Yeah, but I mean, shit, like it's weird stuff. I mean, it's not like creepy weird. It's
is
just
it like is it like Lady Di as a centaur weird, or is it like
no? It's just like bad comic book writing weird. Like very weird situations. Like I drew, and there's no context. So like I had to draw. The last one I drew was like inside this like abandoned warehouse, but there's like a seating area, and you can see out through the windows to the other warehouses nearby, and there's a big billboard that says Fisk for president, or no, it says Dr. Doom, Doom Fisk for president, something like that. And like Dr. Doom and fucking Kingpin are running for
That's
president.
2020.
And, yeah, and then on the inside you have Fury, and you have the Punisher and Kitty Pryde and Taskmaster, and like all of these weird characters who are and there's like fucking Winter Soldier and Cap in the back, and Cap is like sad and upset, and his shield is on the table, and Winter Soldier is, you know, like Bucky is like comforting him, and up here in the front you have Fury and the rest of the gang consulting a schematics plan, and I'm like, like, what is this?
You did it? You did it? You drew it?
Yeah, you paid me a like crazy amount of money to do it, and I was like, okay, fine.
Basically,
And-
like his own fan fiction.
I
Basically,
think that makes you a prostitute.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, he's having a masturbatory fantasy and getting you to
Exactly.
play it.
Yeah, I mean, this was several years ago, and like I'm done with that.
You're
I
over it?
can't imagine like people who
You
buy
just finished it
commissions.
now, you mean?
Right now.
I still can't imagine that people who go to like Cadence Comic Art and say, "Yeah, I want to get a commission from Jeff Lemire. This is what I want, though," and Jeff is like, "Wait, what? What am I drawing?"
No, that's when places like that. That's why it's beneficial, because they can, you know, pardon my French, they can be the assholes on it and
Yeah.
just basically say, no, they're going to do, you know, single characters. It's going to be, you know, half figures, whatever. And
Yeah, and I'm so happy because now I can just say, anybody who says, "Can I get a commission?" I'll be like, "This is my rep. Talk to them."
I'm looking at your page on it right now, Aaron.
Oh,
So
I had a pretty decent first day. I need to get online and kind of
Did you
promote
just
it a little
put
bit
stuff
more.
up? This stuff just went up?
Yeah, it was only like maybe 3 weeks ago,
Oh, okay.
if that, maybe 2 weeks ago. Time doesn't mean anything to me anymore. So,
It's a couple of solds here. There's a sold, yeah.
I think I've sold six pages.
Very nice.
I sold 5 the first day, and I think I've sold another since.
Nice.
great.
So,
Yeah, man.
and with the last issue coming up, I have a bunch of Hellblazer #1 sketch covers that I'm gonna offer up. I think at like maybe $300 a pop. I think so.
What is it? Is that photo?
What is that?
Is it a photo of you? There's a photo of you on the page? Doesn't
Oh, my profile pic, yeah. Which is awesome.
So I jumped in early on the Aaron stuff with the friends and family, and I picked up the Harley Quinn.
Oh,
yeah.
I remember when I suckered him into doing that.
So yes,
I
I
was
was ahead of the game.
Yeah, I was still at Dynamite, so there was
Yeah,
no
you were
real
Dynamite
suckering.
night. You were Dynamite night. I remember telling you, you need to do other work. I can get you a couple of pages in this book, and you were nice to do it. So,
And you
And
got him
Chris
the Dark Horse Presents gig,
Oh, right, yeah.
the whatever the plastic bullets or whatever it was,
Ru-
rubber, yes,
Rubber bullets?
Rubber bullets,
I think
yes.
it was called.
Yes.
Which was one of the editors' kind of scheme to get. Was it like a scheme to get, or wasn't a scheme? It was like a way of doing a proof of concept for his
Yes, it was a proof of concept.
TV pitch.
Yes.
yes, that's right. That's right. The
You
two
wrote
part.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that didn't. I guess that didn't go anywhere.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not 6 years later, no.
No, we weren't rolling up $100 bills and smoking them on that one. That's for sure.
Up here?
So, yeah. But
Sometimes
I'm doing a lot of covers right now. I'm doing covers for Vault. I'm working with James Tinian on his horror anthology thing he's done.
nice.
So yeah, things are going along pretty well now.
Good to hear. Glad you're working. Busy. Keeping busy. Keep you out of trouble.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I got to get going.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so
Yeah, no, we can jump off. It was fun. I'm glad
I'm
you
at
guys.
3 hours and
I
20 minutes.
think you have 7. You can cut this into 7 parts if you want. It keeps going.
Yes, please edit me well. I want a lot of editing.
Yes. Yes. No, I appreciate it, and I know Stephen had a limited schedule, but I'm glad he's able to come on too and talk a little bit about what he does and the movie piece of it, and he was a comic guy, Jimmy. Like before you came on, he was telling us that he met you. I don't remember where he said, but he said like he was originally a comic guy and kind of
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember exactly where I met him, but it's a familiar. I saw him. I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's even yeah. What does he do now? We didn't even get to talk.
So he's still directing, like so.
Oh, he is, okay.
So again, to go back to my interview with you, like you said, follow, go to school, do to get better at what you want to do.
Right.
So for me, it was I went to Full Sail for creative writing, and it was really helpful. Like I learned a lot about script writing, all that stuff from people that are doing it now or people that have done it, and they kind of gave me some ideas on when you're going to pitch, this is what you really need to do, this is what they're looking for, type of thing. And Stephen went to Full Sail for movie stuff,
right?
And basically graduated Full Sail, moved to California, $100 in his pocket, and raised money to do his own movie and sold it. And then from then on, like he's directed 5 or 6 movies for Lionsgate. He directed Bruce Willis 3 times, like Dave Bautista twice. So he's done a lot, and he's kind of like Justin and I now, where he has kids and he's not doing much this year because of COVID and everything else. But I mean, he's done well for himself. I can say that.
Very good. Glad to hear it. Really nice guy. I remember that.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, everybody have a great night.
You too. Thanks, man.
You
Thanks
too.
everybody for coming on.
Good seeing everybody.
Thanks for the invite. Good seeing everybody.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Adios.